The modern world is loud, restless, and demanding. Every day feels like a race, yet no one can tell us where the finish line is. We wake up already chasing emails, deadlines, bills, expectations. The pressure builds quietly until it presses on the chest, leaving us with that uneasy question. Am I really in control of my life, or is life controlling me? Many of us don't even notice the tension anymore because it has become the background music of existence. We scroll through endless feeds, comparing, judging, longing. We pretend to be fine while carrying an invisible weight that never leaves. Deep down, though, there is a quiet cry for relief, for peace, for something steady to hold on to. The truth is, the harder we try to grasp everything, the more fragile we feel. We are told that if we work harder, earn more, love better, or plan more carefully, then happiness will finally come. But instead of peace, we meet exhaustion. Instead of freedom, we meet fear of losing what little we have managed to gather. The dream of control becomes a nightmare of constant struggle. We smile for the world, but inside there is doubt. What if I can't hold it all together? What if I lose everything? That hidden fear is the quiet fuel of modern anxiety. And yet, there is another path. A wisdom older than time itself has been waiting patiently for us to remember. Buddhism does not arrive with judgment. It does not demand that you already be calm, enlightened, or free of mistakes. It meets you exactly where you are in the middle of your stress, your worries, your tangled emotions. It speaks to the very heart of human suffering and offers a way not to escape life, but to live it with open eyes and an open heart. This teaching is not a set of distant rituals. It is a living guide, as relevant in a busy American city as it was in an ancient monastery. It whispers, there is a way to breathe again. There is a way to soften. There is a way to trust life without fear, not imagine for a moment that the constant struggle to control could loosen. Imagine that instead of clinging, you could flow. Imagine meeting each day not as a battlefield, but as a teacher. This is not weakness. It is the beginning of real strength. The Buddhist path reveals that freedom does not come from holding tighter, but from letting go of the illusion that we ever needed to hold so tightly in the first place. It offers tools, mindfulness, compassion, the understanding of cause and effect, the practice of stillness that are like lanterns on a dark road. Each step does not erase our challenges, but it transforms the way we walk through them. This journey will take us through 10 deep explorations of the human heart. We will speak honestly about stress, money, relationships, anxiety, and the aching hunger for meaning. We will not turn away from the pain, because pain itself is the doorway. But alongside every wound, we will uncover the medicine, the timeless insights of the Buddha, reshaped in words simple and clear enough to carry with you into daily life. Together, these reflections form more than lessons. They create a living bridge from struggle to peace. And so, let us begin. Let us walk together into the first truth, a truth that reaches straight into the illusion that we can control everything. For it is here, in the false promise of control, that so much of our suffering begins. And it is here, in learning to trust beyond control, that our freedom first whispers to us. We live in a culture that praises control. From the earliest years, children are told to take charge of their future, to be strong, to have a plan. Advertisements whisper that if we buy the right car, the right insurance, the right phone, we will finally feel secure. Corporations thrive on convincing us that life is a machine that can be engineered, that everything can be managed if we just hold the reins tightly enough. But beneath this cultural promise lies a deep and painful tension. We know, at some level, that control is fragile. Illness, loss, economic collapse, unexpected tragedy, these strike without warning. And in that moment, all the careful plans and walls of control collapse like sandcastles against the tide. This illusion of control creates a quiet war inside the mind. We tell ourselves, if I prepare enough, I will never be caught off guard. If I save enough, I will never feel poor. If I am careful enough, nothing will hurt me. But life always finds a way to remind us that such control is only partial, temporary, and in many ways imaginary. And when life does not bend to our will, we respond with frustration, fear, and sometimes despair. It is like trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The tighter we squeeze, the more it slips away. Think about the countless ways we attempt to control even the smallest details. Double-checking text messages before sending them, replaying conversations in our minds to see if we said the right thing, worrying about whether others approve of us. We refresh news feeds, watching markets rise and fall, hoping to predict the future. We carry around schedules, alarms, and backup plans, all designed to guard against the unexpected. And yet, no matter how much energy we pour into control, we still wake in the night with racing thoughts. We still feel our stomach tighten when something doesn't go according to plan. We still feel the fear of uncertainty. This is the root of anxiety in modern times. Anxiety is not only fear of what might happen. It is fear that we cannot control what might happen. It is the knowing thought that despite all our preparation, the universe will still move according to its own rhythm. And that thought terrifies us, because it exposes how small our grip truly is. In many ways, we are not afraid of events themselves. We are afraid of not being able to command them. Yet Buddhism offers a different perspective. Instead of feeding the illusion of control, it invites us to see through it. Life, according to the Buddha's teaching, is impermanent. Everything arises and passes away: thoughts, emotions, bodies, relationships, even civilizations. To cling to control in a world built on change is like trying to anchor a boat to the wind. No wonder we feel exhausted. The first step toward peace is not in controlling more, but in recognizing that the dream of total control was never possible to begin with. To some, this sounds frightening. If we give up control, will we not become helpless? If we let go, won't everything fall apart? But here lies the subtle beauty. Letting go does not mean falling into chaos. It means trusting the larger rhythm of life, recognizing that we are carried by a current far greater than our own hands. The river does not need us to push it forward. The seasons do not require us to instruct them. Our very breath comes and goes without us managing it every second. There is a natural intelligence moving through existence, and when we soften our grip, we begin to feel it. Imagine walking through a forest. The trees grow without anyone demanding that they do so. The rain falls, the streams carve valleys, the animals move in harmony with needs and instincts. Nothing is controlled by one hand, and yet the system thrives. Life is not a machine, it is a living symphony. And in that symphony, we are not the conductor. We are one of the instruments, invited to play in tune with what already exists. The pain of modern living is that we often try to be both instrument and conductor, forcing life into rigid scores that it was never meant to follow. We forget that harmony comes not from dominance, but from attunement. And this attunement begins when we loosen our grip and allow ourselves to trust. Trust is not naive. Trust does not mean ignoring dangers or pretending that suffering does not exist. Trust is the quiet courage to meet life as it is, without demanding that it bend to every wish. It is the confidence that even when storms arise, the sky remains vast enough to hold them. It is the recognition that life is not an enemy to defeat, but a companion to walk with. Consider the moments when trust has carried you without effort. Perhaps it was the way your body healed after an injury, without your constant supervision. Perhaps it was how a new opportunity appeared just when you thought you had reached a dead end. Perhaps it was a friendship that arrived at the right time, or the way grief softened after many months. even though you thought the pain would never ease. These moments remind us that life has its own intelligence, and that control is only one layer of reality. Beneath it lies something deeper, more mysterious, and ultimately more supportive than we realize. Asterisk still, the mind resists this teaching. The ego thrives on the illusion of control because it believes control equals survival. If I am not in control, the mind whispers, I will not be safe. This is why surrender feels so terrifying at first. But notice, has control ever truly kept us safe? People who eat perfectly still fall sick. People with the best financial plans still face recessions. People who build walls of security still feel lonely. Control cannot protect us from life, because life itself is beyond any single person's grasp. Buddhism teaches that freedom begins when we stop fighting this truth. The Buddha compared life to a river ever flowing, never still. To demand that the river stop moving is to suffer, but to step into the river and move with its current is to discover peace. This is the call to trust, not blind faith, but a deep alignment with the reality of impermanence. The practice of mindfulness is the doorway into this trust. When we sit and breathe, when we watch thoughts rise and fall without clinging, we train ourselves to witness the river of life as it is. At first, this feels uncomfortable. The mind rebels, insisting that it must judge, predict, control. But over time, mindfulness teaches us to rest in awareness rather than in control. We begin to notice the gap between what we demand and what is. And in that gap, suffering loosens its grip. Let me share a simple example. Imagine you are stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. The car in front of you inches forward, then stops again. You grip the steering wheel, heart racing, mind screaming that this cannot be happening. In that moment, what hurts more, the traffic or your resistance to it? The traffic is neutral. It simply is. The suffering is born from the desperate belief that reality should be different. But when you take a breath and release that grip, the traffic does not vanish, but the suffering begins to ease. You cannot control the road, but you can trust your own presence within it. This is not passivity. This is power. For when we stop exhausting ourselves with impossible battles, we discover a new energy. That energy can then be directed toward actions that truly matter: kindness, creativity, healing. Trust does not paralyze us. It liberates us. In every era, humans have wrestled with the illusion of control. But in our age of technology, the illusion has become louder than ever. With every app, every forecast, every algorithm, we are promised prediction, certainty, mastery. Yet the more we lean on these promises, the more fragile we feel when life refuses to obey. Depression rises. Anxiety multiplies. Addictions spread. Why? Because beneath the glitter of control lies emptiness, and the soul knows it. Buddhist wisdom, however, invites us to turn toward this emptiness with compassion. Instead of filling it with endless effort, we pause. We breathe. We listen. We ask, what if life itself is trustworthy? This question opens a new horizon. It does not erase pain, but it reframes it. It does not erase uncertainty, but it softens our fear on it. It allows us to stand in the middle of chaos with a steady heart. And so the journey begins here, with the courage to see through the illusion of control. The more we let go, the more we realize that trust is not a risk, it is a return. A return to the truth that has always been present. Life is vast, interconnected, and profoundly intelligent. This return does not happen overnight. It is a practice, a daily choosing, a daily reminder to soften the grip, to release the fist, to breathe into the present moment. And slowly, like a seed breaking through the soil, trust begins to grow. It grows not as a fragile hope, but as a living strength, rooted in the deepest ground of being. as we continue on this journey. We will go deeper into what surrender really means, not resignation, but vibrant strength. But before we step there, we must pause and feel the weight of this first truth. Control is an illusion. Trust is the path. And the moment we dare to trust, we begin to walk in freedom, not to truly understand the illusion of control. We must look at how it shapes our everyday lives in subtle, almost invisible ways. Consider the way we speak. How often do we use phrases like, "I need everything to go my way," or "if only things had turned out differently"? These words are soaked in the desire for control. They reveal an inner belief that peace is possible only when life bends to our conditions. But if peace depends on life matching our script, then peace will forever slip from our grasp. Because life, in its very essence, refuses to be scripted. Think of the weather. No matter how carefully we plan a picnic or a wedding, the sky may darken, the rain may fall. For many, this feels unfair, as though the world has betrayed them. Yet the weather is simply doing what it has always done, changing. It is not personal. It is not against us. And yet, we suffer because we expected it to obey. The suffering is not in the rain. It is in our attempt to control what was never ours to control. This is the pattern that repeats in countless areas of life. In relationships, we suffer when people do not behave as we want them to. In careers, we suffer when promotions or opportunities slip away despite our effort. In health, we suffer when the body does not respond to our will. Behind each moment of frustration is the same hidden root, the illusion that we were ever in charge of the outcome. Buddhism invites us to shine a gentle light on this illusion. It asks, what if peace is not found in control, but in release? What if happiness does not depend on the world obeying us, but on our ability to meet the world as it is? This does not mean we stop acting. It does not mean we abandon responsibility. It means we act without the desperate demand that our actions guarantee a certain result. We do what we can, but we also bow to the mystery of life, trusting it to unfold in its own time. The Buddha himself lived this truth. After years of extreme effort-seeking to control his body through severe fasting, seeking to control his mind through relentless striving, he discovered that awakening did not arise from force. It arose from release. Under the Bodhi tree, he surrendered his search. He sat, not as a warrior battling life, but as a witness to it. And in that surrender, the deepest freedom revealed itself. His story reminds us that the greatest breakthroughs often come not from control, but from letting go. This lesson is echoed in our modern world, though we rarely recognize it. Artists often describe how their best work emerges, not when they force creativity, but when they allow inspiration to flow. Athletes speak of being in the zone, a state where control is replaced by trust in the body's natural rhythm. Parents notice that their children thrive not under constant control, but when they are trusted to explore and grow. Life itself seems to whisper, the more we loosen our grip, the more alive we become. Yet we resist this wisdom because we confuse surrender with weakness. We fear that if we let go, everything will collapse. But this fear is born from misunderstanding. Surrender is not resignation. It is not passive defeat. It is a conscious choice to stop fighting reality. It is strength disguised as softness. When we release the illusion of control, we are not abandoning life. We are finally joining it. Imagine holding a rope in a tug of war. On the other side is life itself, pulling with infinite force. You dig your heels in, straining, sweating, terrified of losing ground. But life never tires. The struggle is endless. Now imagine something different. What happens when you simply let go of the rope? The war ends. The tension dissolves. You are no longer dragged, no longer exhausted. Instead, you are free to walk in any direction. This is the essence of surrender. Trust grows in the soil of this surrender. Trust does not mean believing that everything will go our way. It means believing that even when it doesn't, we will still be okay. It means recognizing that life has carried us through countless storms already, and it will continue to carry us. It is remembering that the ground beneath us is solid, even when the winds rage. One of the simplest practices to cultivate trust is the practice of breath awareness. Right now, without any effort from you, the body breathes. Inhale, exhale. This rhythm has been with you since the moment of birth, and it will remain until your final day. You do not command each breath. You do not need to. Life breathes you. To sit quietly and feel this truth is to glimpse the larger intelligence at work. If the breath can be trusted, what else might be trusted? The beating of the heart, the rising of the sun, the turning of the earth, these unfold without our command. They are reminders that control was never the source of safety. Connection was, and here is the paradox. The more we let go of control, the more powerful we feel. Why? Because our energy is no longer wasted on impossible battles. Instead of fearing change, we adapt to it. Instead of clinging to certainty, we meet uncertainty with curiosity. This shift transforms life from an endless series of threats into an endless series of teachers. Each moment, no matter how unexpected, becomes an invitation to grow in time. We begin to see that control was never about security, it was about fear. The ego clings to control because it cannot bear the truth of impermanence. But when we face impermanence directly, when we accept that change is the very nature of existence, fear begins to soften. We realize that we were never standing on solid ground to begin with, and yet we are still here, breathing, living, loving. This realization is not depressing, it is liberating. Because if nothing is fixed, then every moment is new. Every moment is alive with possibility. Letting go of control does not mean becoming reckless. It means becoming wise. It means knowing when to act and when to release. It means planting seeds with care, while also trusting the rain, the soil, the sun. It means working with life rather than against it. And in this partnership, a deep peace arises, the peace of no longer needing to fight. Asterisk, this peace is not abstract. It shows up in daily life in very concrete ways. A parent who lets go of control stops shouting and begins listening. A leader who lets go of control stops micromanaging and begins empowering. A person facing illness who lets go of control stops obsessing over outcomes and begins living each day more fully. Trust reshapes the way we work, love, and even suffer. It does not erase difficulty, but it changes our relationship to it. And in that change lies freedom. As this first part of our journey closes, we return to the heart of the message. The illusion of control is the root of much of our modern suffering. We chase security where it cannot be found. We cling to certainty in a world built on change. And we exhaust ourselves in battles we can never win. But when we release the rope, when we let go of the clenched fist, when we dare to trust, something remarkable happens. Peace begins to flow in. This is only the beginning. For once we understand that control is an illusion, the next question arises, what does true surrender look like? If it is not weakness, not resignation, then what is it? How can surrender become a source of strength, a vibrant way of living fully in the present moment? These are the questions we will explore next. And so we stand at a threshold. Behind us lies the illusion of control, the restless struggle to command life. Ahead lies a deeper truth, surrender as a living strength. As we step forward, may we carry with us the courage to trust, to soften, and to discover that freedom is not found in grasping, but in letting go. When people hear the word surrender, they often imagine defeat. They picture someone raising a white flag, collapsing on the battlefield, or giving up when life becomes too heavy. This picture is soaked in hopelessness. It suggests a person who has no fight left, who has been crushed by circumstance, who has abandoned the possibility of joy. And so, many recoil from the idea of surrender, clinging instead to control, no matter how exhausting that control might be. But this misunderstanding blinds us to a profound truth. For true surrender, as taught in Buddhism, is not weakness. It is not resignation. It is, in fact, a radical act of strength. Resignation says, "I am broken, and nothing can be done." Resignation collapses into despair, refusing to move, refusing to breathe hope. True surrender is the opposite. True surrender looks at life directly, acknowledges the pain, and still chooses to open. It says, "Yes, this is difficult. Yes, I feel fear. Yes, I feel loss. And still, I will not close my heart." This is not passive defeat. It is active courage. It is meeting the storm not by pretending it isn't there, and not by fighting it with clenched fists, but by planting our feet firmly in the ground and letting the wind blow through us. To see the difference between resignation and surrender, imagine standing in the middle of a raging river. Resignation is allowing the current to pull you under, letting the water carry you wherever it may, drowning in helplessness. True surrender, however, is different. It is learning to float. It is trusting the current while keeping your head above water, breathing steadily, and allowing the river to carry you forward. One is despair. The other is freedom. The modern world often confuses surrender with laziness or avoidance. We are told to hustle harder, to always be in control, to never let go. And so, when someone chooses to release their desperate grip, they may be judged as irresponsible. But Buddhism reveals that true surrender is not neglect. It is a deeper engagement with life. It is saying, "I will do my part, but I will not demand that the universe obey me. I will act with care, but I will not measure my worth by outcomes. I will love deeply, but I will not chain love with fear." This form of surrender requires enormous strength because it asks us to stand naked before life, without the armor of control. It asks us to face uncertainty with open hands rather than clenched fists. And this openness, far from making us weak, connects us to the deepest well of resilience within. Think about the great storms in your own life. Perhaps it was a breakup, a financial collapse, an illness, or the loss of someone dear. In the beginning, you may have fought fiercely against reality, refusing to accept what was happening. That fight likely brought exhaustion, perhaps even bitterness. But at some point, something shifted. You stopped fighting. You breathed. You allowed the truth to be what it was. And strangely, in that moment of letting go, a new kind of strength arose. You felt lighter, freer, even in the middle of pain. That was surrender, not resignation, but a release that opened the door to healing. The Buddha often spoke of this release in terms of non-attachment. Non-attachment is not indifference. It does not mean we stop caring about people or outcomes. It means we stop chaining our peace to them. We can still work, still love, still dream, but we no longer demand that life give us a particular result in order to feel safe. This is surrender in action. A farmer plants seeds with care, waters the soil, tends to the crops. But he cannot control the rain or the sun. He does not sit in the field, weeping in despair because he cannot command the weather. He does his part and then trusts the larger forces to do theirs. This is the model of true surrender. It is responsibility without obsession, effort without desperation, presence without fear. The problem is that many of us live as though we are responsible for the entire universe. We try to manage not only our own lives, but the lives of others' partners, children, co-workers, even strangers. We attempt to control not only events, but emotions. I must always be happy. I must never feel afraid. I must eliminate sadness from my heart. And when these impossible standards collapse, as they always do, we fall into resignation. We say, I tried everything and it didn't work, so I give up. But surrender asks for something different. It asks us to stop playing God, to release the illusion that we must control every wave of existence. Not to surrender is to enter a sacred partnership with life. It is to say, I will do what I can, and I will trust life to carry the rest. This is not a half-hearted effort. It is full effort, full presence, but without the poison of expectation. And when this effort is combined with release, it brings a peace that control could never provide. One of the most powerful images of surrender comes from martial arts. In disciplines like judo or aikido, the student is taught not to resist force with force, but to flow with it. Instead of clashing, they redirect the energy, allowing the opponent's strength to dissolve itself. In this way, surrender becomes the ultimate form of power. It is not passive. It is skillful. It is wise. And it is deeply effective. So too in life. When anger arises, we do not resist it with shame or denial. We breathe into it, acknowledging its presence. When grief comes, we do not try to banish it with forced cheer. We allow it to flow, trusting that in time it will soften. When uncertainty surrounds us, we do not drown in fear. We stand still and listen, allowing the path to reveal itself step by step. This way of surrender is not abstract, it is practical. It transforms relationships. A parent who surrenders stops trying to control every choice of their child, and instead learns to guide with love and patience. A partner who surrenders stops demanding that their spouse be a perfect source of happiness, and instead learns to share joy and pain together. A worker who surrenders stops obsessing over recognition and instead finds meaning in the work itself. In each case, surrender is not a loss of power. It is a discovery of deeper connection. At its heart, surrender is rooted in trust, the trust that life is bigger than us, the trust that even when outcomes are uncertain, we can remain steady. This is not blind trust. It is not the denial of reality. It is an active seeing, a clear-eyed acceptance of what is. And when we live this way, something miraculous happens. The burden lifts. The heart softens. The world feels less hostile, less heavy. The danger of resignation is that it closes doors. It says, nothing can be done, so I will stop living fully. The power of surrender is that it opens doors. It says, life may not be what I expected, but it is still alive, still rich, still full of possibility. And from this openness, new paths appear. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering. We cling to control, to expectations, to identities. And when those crumble, we feel crushed. Surrender is the antidote to clinging. It allows us to hold life lightly, to dance with change instead of resisting it. In this dance, resilience grows. Compassion grows. Wisdom grows. True surrender, then, is not the end of effort. It is the beginning of a new kind of effort. It is effort infused with clarity, gentleness, and strength. It is no longer about forcing the world to obey, but about learning to walk with the world as it is. And in that walk, we discover that life is not our enemy. Life is our teacher. When we first begin practicing surrender, the mind rebels. It whispers, if you stop controlling, everything will fall apart. That fear is powerful, and it often convinces us to cling harder, to push more, to grasp at every detail. But the lived experience of surrender tells a different story. Time and again, those who release their iron grip discover that life does not collapse. Instead, it softens. Doors open. Relationships deepen. Peace becomes possible. The fear was not a truth. It was only a habit of the ego. Let us consider a common example: relationships. Many people attempt to control their partners out of fear of abandonment, fear of betrayal, fear of losing love. This control may look like constant checking, constant questioning, or constant demands. But control rarely creates safety. Instead, it breeds tension, resentment, and distance. The relationship begins to suffocate under the weight of expectation. When one finally surrenders, not resigning from love, but releasing the grip on control, something shifts. Space opens. Trust can breathe. Both people feel lighter, freer, more willing to stay. In this way, surrender becomes the true foundation of intimacy. Another example arises in the workplace. Imagine someone who pours endless energy into their job, believing that if they just work harder, they can guarantee promotion, recognition, or security. Every task becomes loaded with anxiety. Every review a test of worth. The pressure becomes unbearable. Yet when surrender enters, when the person says, "I will give my best, but I will not bind my peace to the outcome," the entire experience transforms. Work no longer feels like a battlefield. It becomes an offering. Creativity rises. Resilience strengthens. Ironically, surrender often leads to greater success because energy is no longer trapped in fear. The same truth appears in health. Illness can feel like the ultimate loss of control. The body changes, symptoms appear, doctors give uncertain answers. Many resist with anger. Why me? This should not be happening. That resistance only adds suffering to suffering. But those who practice surrender discover a new path. They stop asking life to erase the illness and begin asking how they can live fully with it. They accept treatment with openness, rest when needed, and embrace each day as it comes. This is not resignation, it is courage. It is a refusal to let illness steal the fullness of life. The Buddha offered a teaching called equanimity, the ability to remain steady in the face of both joy and sorrow. Equanimity is not coldness. It is not detachment. It is the calm strength that arises from surrender. When we no longer cling to pleasure or resist pain, we begin to walk through life with balance. We feel joy without fear of losing it. We feel sorrow without being destroyed by it. This is the fruit of true surrender, a heart that can hold the entire spectrum of life without collapsing. And yet, surrender does not happen once. It is not a single decision. It is a practice, a rhythm, a way of being that must be cultivated day after day. Some days it feels natural, other days impossible. Some moments we trust deeply, others we grasp desperately. This is part of the journey. The key is not perfection, it is persistence. Every time we notice our grip tightening, we can breathe, soften, and release again. Slowly, this becomes our default posture toward life, open hands instead of clenched fists. A powerful image of this practice is the lotus flower. The lotus grows in muddy water, rising above the surface to bloom in pure beauty. It does not fight the mud. It does not resist its environment. It uses the mud as nourishment and transforms it into petals of grace. In the same way, surrender does not deny difficulty. It uses difficulty as soil for awakening. It transforms what could drown us into what helps us rise. We must also be clear. Surrender does not mean silence in the face of injustice. It does not mean ignoring harm or refusing to act. Surrender is not apathy. On the contrary, true surrender allows us to act more wisely and effectively. When we are not trapped in anger or fear, we can respond to injustice with clarity. We can speak truth without hatred, defend the vulnerable without bitterness, and work for change without being consumed by rage. This is surrender as living strength action rooted in compassion, not in control. The world often encourages resignation when challenges feel too big. It says, "There is nothing you can do, so stop trying." This voice of despair drains hope. Surrender speaks differently. It says, you cannot control everything, but you can choose how to respond. That choice, moment by moment, is the doorway to freedom. Let us imagine someone standing at the edge of a forest fire. Resignation would say, the flames are too strong. I give up. Control would say, I must stop the fire myself, and collapse in exhaustion. Surrender would say, I cannot stop the fire alone, but I can help this neighbor. I can save this tree. I can carry water with others. Surrender does not blind us to reality. It empowers us to meet reality wisely. This wisdom is urgently needed in our modern time. With global uncertainty, climate change, economic instability, and personal struggles, many feel overwhelmed. They either collapse into resignation or exhaust themselves with control. Both paths lead to suffering. But surrender offers a third way, a path of engagement without despair, action without obsession, strength without rigidity. Over and over, Buddhist teachings return us to the breath. Because in the breath, surrender is already happening. You inhale, and then you must exhale. You cannot cling to the breath, holding it forever. To try would be to suffocate. Life itself is built on surrender. Each breath is a teacher. Each breath reminds us that letting go is not death. It is life. In our culture, strength is often measured by how tightly we hold on. But perhaps true strength is measured by how gracefully we let go. Think of an elder who, after a long life, surrenders to death with peace, surrounded by love. Think of a parent who lets their child grow into independence without clinging. Think of a leader who steps aside when the time is right, trusting others to continue the work. These are not acts of weakness. They are acts of deep wisdom. And so, we return to the central truth. Resignation is giving up on life. True surrender is giving life the freedom to move as it must, while we remain open, awake, and engaged. This is not the end of effort. It is the beginning of freedom. As we step out of this part of the journey, let us hold the image of the open hand. The closed fist represents control, clinging, fear. The limp hand represents resignation, despair, hopelessness. But the open hand, that is surrender. It is strength with softness, action with trust, presence without fear. This image prepares us for the next step. For at the very heart of human suffering lies a force deeper than control or resignation. It is craving, the endless hunger that drives us to cling, to grasp, to demand. And if we are to truly understand suffering, we must turn directly toward this craving. We must ask, why does it arise, and how can it be released? That is where our journey now leads us. At the core of the Buddha's teaching lies a simple yet profound observation. Suffering arises not only from pain itself, but from craving. Craving is that restless force in the mind that says, this moment is not enough. I must have more. I must change this. I must hold on forever. It is not just desire. Desire can be gentle, natural, even healthy. Craving is sharper, more demanding. It is the insistence that happiness will come only if life gives us exactly what we want, and that unhappiness is guaranteed if life takes something away. Think for a moment about your own life. How many times have you told yourself, I'll be happy when I get the promotion, when I buy the house, when I find the right partner, when I lose the weight, when I retire? This list is endless because craving never stops. Even when we achieve one goal, craving immediately replaces it with another. The promotion brings pressure for the next title. The house needs repairs. The relationship requires constant tending. The body ages despite our best efforts. And so the cycle continues. Craving feeds itself endlessly, always promising peace, never delivering it. This is why craving is so exhausting. It ties our sense of worth and safety to conditions outside ourselves, conditions that are always changing. It says, I'll be okay if this happens. I'll be destroyed if it doesn't. That fragile bargain keeps us trapped, always chasing, never resting. Buddhism names this cycle clearly. It is the wheel of suffering. Craving arises, craving drives action. Action leads to temporary satisfaction or disappointment, which leads to more craving. Around and around we go. It is like being thirsty and drinking salt water. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. Consider money. There is nothing wrong with money itself. It is a tool, a means of exchange. But when craving takes hold, money becomes a measure of worth. We say, if I reach this number, then I will finally feel secure. But that number always shifts. When we earn more, we suddenly want more. When we compare ourselves to others, we always find someone richer. The craving whispers, just a little more, and then you'll be safe. But safety never arrives. Instead, we become prisoners of endless striving. The same is true with love. Love can be a source of deep joy and connection. But when craving grips love, it turns into possession, jealousy, control. We say, I cannot be happy unless this person acts exactly as I want. We cling, we demand, we fear loss. And in that grasping, the natural flow of love suffocates. Instead of joy, love becomes anxiety. Instead of freedom, love becomes chains. Even in spiritual life, craving sneaks in. People say, if I meditate enough, I will finally be enlightened. If I become calm enough, I will never feel pain again. But craving does not disappear simply because the object changes. Whether we chase wealth, love, or enlightenment, craving still ties our happiness to a condition outside the present moment. And as long as that tie remains, peace cannot last. The Buddha pointed to craving as the root of suffering, not to condemn us, but to free us. By naming it, we can begin to see it clearly. And by seeing it clearly, we can begin to release it. The release does not mean giving up all desire. It means untangling ourselves from the desperate, clinging quality of craving. It means shifting from, I'll be okay only if, to, I am present and whole even now. This shift begins with awareness. Imagine you are eating your favorite meal. Craving says, I need more. If this plate ends, my joy will vanish. Mindfulness, however, notices, here is a bite. It is delicious. I taste it fully. Instead of clinging to the future, awareness anchors in the present. The food becomes richer, more satisfying, because we are not lost in the hunger for more. Or imagine you are with someone you love. Craving says, I must make sure they never leave. I must hold them tightly. Mindfulness, however, notices, here they are, breathing, smiling, sitting beside me. Instead of being consumed by fear of loss, awareness allows us to enjoy the living presence of connection. Love becomes deeper when it is not chained by craving. The Buddha taught that the end of craving is the end of suffering. This does not mean that life becomes free of pain. Illness, loss, and death still come. But suffering, the extra layer of anguish born from clinging, begins to fade. Pain may remain, but peace can exist alongside it. This is the freedom of release. Think of a storm passing through. If you stand outside demanding, the storm must stop now, you suffer endlessly. If you hide inside, trembling, convinced the storm will never end, you suffer as well. But if you simply watch, trusting that storms come and go, something shifts. You may still feel rain on your skin, wind on your face, but your heart is steady. The storm does not control you. Craving is like demanding sunshine at all times. Release is learning to stand in the rain with grace. This practice is not abstract. It shows up in daily life in small ways. The next time you feel the impulse to check your phone for the 10th time, pause. Ask yourself, is this action driven by true need or by craving? The next time you feel the urge to buy something you don't truly need, pause. Ask, will this bring peace? Or is this craving pretending to offer peace? The next time you feel the ache of longing for life to be different, pause, breathe. Allow yourself to rest in the present, even if just for a moment. Each pause weakens the grip of craving. Craving thrives in unconsciousness. It grows in the shadows. But when we bring it into the light of awareness, it begins to dissolve. We see it for what it is, a habit of the mind, not a law of existence. We discover that we can feel craving without obeying it. We can sit with the hunger without feeding it. And in that space, freedom is born. This freedom is not cold or detached. It is warm, open, and alive. When we release craving, we become more present to the joys already around us. We taste food more fully. We listen to others more deeply. We notice the beauty of small moments, the color of the sky, the sound of laughter, the touch of a hand. Life becomes richer because we are no longer racing past it in search of something else. Over time, the practice of release becomes a new way of living. We begin to trust that peace does not depend on outcomes. We stop bargaining with the universe. We stop saying, I'll be happy when, and begin saying, I am here now. This simple shift transforms everything. And so, craving no longer rules us. It may still arise, but it loses its power. Like a wave crashing on the shore, it comes and goes, but the ocean remains. Our awareness is that ocean vast, steady, unshaken. This is the heart of Buddhist freedom. Not escaping life, but living fully within it, unbound by craving. To understand the depth of craving, we must look at its many disguises. Sometimes it is obvious: the hunger for wealth, the pursuit of status, the desire for comfort. But often, craving hides beneath noble clothing. It disguises itself as ambition, as romance, even as spirituality. It whispers, you are not complete yet. You must achieve more, gain more, become more. And so, even when we think we are walking the path of wisdom, craving may be quietly pulling the strings. Consider the craving for recognition. We long to be seen, to be valued, to be praised. On the surface, this appears harmless. After all, appreciation feels good. But when our happiness becomes chained to the approval of others, we suffer endlessly. A single word of criticism can undo us. A moment of being overlooked can make us feel invisible. Craving has made us dependent on forces outside our control. And so, even in success, we live in fear of losing it, or consider the craving for certainty. The human mind longs for answers. What will happen tomorrow? What will happen next year? Will I be okay? Will my loved ones be safe? This craving is subtle, but it gnaws at us constantly. It makes us check the news again and again, seek predictions, cling to plans as though they were guarantees. But life does not offer guarantees. The future is always unwritten. Craving for certainty blinds us to the beauty of the present moment. It replaces living with waiting. Even in spiritual practice, craving shows its face. A meditator may think, if I sit long enough, I will reach enlightenment, and then suffering will vanish forever. But this thought is itself craving. It projects peace into the future instead of discovering it in the now. The Buddha warned against this trap. He taught that liberation is not found in clinging to future states, but in releasing clinging altogether. So how do we begin to release craving? The answer is not force. We cannot fight craving into silence, for fighting is another form of craving, the craving for craving to disappear. Instead, the path is awareness and compassion. When craving arises, we do not condemn it. We notice it. We breathe with it. We say, here is the mind reaching. Here is the heart longing. We watch it as we would watch clouds drifting through the sky. The craving is not who we are. It is a passing condition, and just as it arises, it will pass. This practice takes patience. Craving has been with us for a long time. It is woven into the human story, into survival itself. To expect it to vanish overnight is unrealistic. But each time we notice craving without obeying it, the habit weakens. Each time we pause instead of grasping, freedom grows. Slowly, like water carving a canyon, awareness reshapes the mind. Stories help illuminate this truth. There is a tale of a monk who once received a beautiful cup as a gift. At first, he admired it daily, polishing it, keeping it safe. But he noticed his peace was tied to the cup. If it chipped, he felt sorrow. If it was missing, he felt fear. One day, he said to himself, "This cup is already broken. I simply do not know when." From that day forward, he enjoyed the cup deeply, but no longer clung to it. When it finally broke, he did not suffer, for he had already released his craving for permanence. This story captures the essence of Buddhist freedom. Everything we love will eventually change. Every possession, every relationship, even our own bodies will pass. To cling is to suffer. To release is to love more deeply, more freely, more honestly. Because when we stop demanding permanence, we can finally appreciate the miracle of impermanence. The freedom of release does not mean a dull or empty life. On the contrary, it means a richer life. When we are not enslaved by craving, we are free to savor. We eat not with desperate hunger, but with gratitude. We love not with fear, but with openness. We work not with anxiety, but with joy. We suffer losses with tenderness, but without despair. This is not a cold detachment. It is a warm, living engagement with reality as it is. Imagine walking through a garden. Craving says, "I must own these flowers. I must make them last forever." And so you pluck them, only to watch them wither in your hand. Release says, "These flowers are blooming now. Let me see them, smell them, bow to their beauty. The flowers still fade, but your heart remains full." This is the difference between craving and freedom. The Buddha did not promise that craving would vanish forever in an instant, but he promised that with practice, the grip of craving can loosen. And as it loosens, the heart becomes light. This lightness is not fragile, it is unshakable, because it no longer depends on the world bending to our will. It depends only on our willingness to meet the world as it is dot. And so, the freedom of release is not something distant. It is available now, in this very breath. It is in the moment we choose to pause before grasping. It is in the moment we soften instead of clench. It is in the moment we open our eyes to what already is, rather than demanding something more. Each of these moments is a step out of suffering and into peace. As we close this part of the journey, let us remember, craving is not our enemy. It is a teacher. It reveals where we are clinging, where we are afraid, where we are blind to the present. And when we see it clearly, we can bow to it, breathe with it, and let it pass. This is the way of freedom. And now, having explored the roots of craving and the possibility of release, we turn to the next great truth, karma. For if craving shows us why suffering arises, karma shows us how our actions ripple outward and return to shape our lives. Karma is not punishment or reward. It is the echo of intention. And to understand this echo is to step even deeper into the mystery of freedom. Karma is a word often surrounded by misunderstanding. In popular culture, it is thrown around casually, as if it means instant justice. Do something bad, and something bad will happen to you. But this is not the depth of the Buddhist teaching. Karma is not a cosmic punishment. It is not a divine scoreboard keeping track of right and wrong. It is subtler, more profound, and ultimately more liberating. Karma, in its truest sense, is the echo of intention. Every thought, every word, Every action arises from intention, and each intention plants a seed. These seeds grow, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, shaping the soil of lives. When our intentions are rooted in greed, hatred, or delusion, the seeds grow into suffering. When our intentions are rooted in compassion, generosity, and wisdom, the seeds grow into peace. Karma is the law of cause and effect, not in some distant heaven, but here, now, in the living field of our daily choices. Imagine throwing a pebble into a still pond. The ripples move outward, touching every part of the surface. Our intentions are like that pebble. Each choice creates ripples, sometimes small, sometimes large, that extend far beyond what we can see. A harsh word may echo in someone's heart for years. A kind gesture may inspire change in ways we will never know. Karma reminds us that nothing we do is isolated. Everything leaves an imprint. This teaching can feel heavy at first, as though we are trapped by the weight of our past. People often ask, does this mean I am doomed to suffer because of mistakes I made before? Does my past seal my fate? The answer is no. Karma is not fixed destiny. It is a living process. Just as a garden can be overrun with weeds, but still be replanted, our lives can always be reshaped by new seeds. Each moment is fresh soil. Each moment carries the possibility of new intention. The Buddha himself often used the image of seeds. If you plant an apple seed, you will not grow an orange tree. If you plant a thorn bush, you will not harvest roses. In the same way, if we plant seeds of anger, fear, and selfishness, we cannot expect peace to blossom. But if we plant seeds of kindness, patience, and clarity, peace will eventually bloom. The soil does not judge. It simply brings forth what is planted. Life, too, does not judge. It simply reflects the intentions we sow. This truth can be both sobering and empowering. Sobering because it reminds us of responsibility. We cannot escape the results of what we cultivate. But empowering because it reminds us of freedom. No matter how many unhelpful seeds we have planted in the past, we can begin planting new ones today. And over time, those new seeds will reshape the garden of our lives. Think about your own experience. Perhaps you have spoken in anger and later felt the sting of regret, the ripple of harm in your relationships. That is karma, the echo of intention returning. Perhaps you have given kindness to someone in need and later felt joy, connection, or gratitude in return. That too is karma, the echo of intention blossoming. Life continually mirrors back the quality of our choices, not as punishment or reward, but as natural unfolding. This teaching calls us to look inward, not outward. It is easy to blame circumstances, to say, life has dealt me an unfair hand, and indeed, some conditions are beyond our control. But karma reminds us that within those conditions, our intentions matter. We may not choose the storm, but we choose how to meet it. We may not control every outcome, but we control the quality of our response. And it is that quality, our inner posture, that shapes the ripples of our lives. Consider the difference between two people facing the same difficulty. One responds with bitterness, cursing life, harming themselves and others with anger. The other responds with patience, with kindness, with the resolve to learn. The same event, yet two entirely different karmic seeds are planted. Over time, those seeds grow into entirely different futures. This is why Buddhism does not ask us to believe in karma as a distant doctrine. It invites us to observe karma in the laboratory of our own lives. Pay attention to how your choices feel. Notice the inner echo. When you act with greed, does your heart feel light or heavy? When you act with compassion, does your heart shrink or expand? Karma is not abstract. It is immediate, intimate, alive. One of the most beautiful aspects of this teaching is that it releases us from the chains of guilt. Mistakes do not define us forever. Each moment offers fresh soil. If we have harmed others, we can plant seeds of apology, of repair, of care. If we have harmed ourselves, we can plant seeds of forgiveness, of gentleness, of new intention. The past cannot be undone, but the future is unwritten. Karma is not a prison. It is a path. The danger is when we misunderstand karma as fatalism, believing everything that happens is simply meant to be because of past actions. This is not the Buddhist teaching. He did not say, "You suffer because you deserve it." He said, "You suffer because causes and conditions have led to this moment. And if you change the causes, you change the future. This is not fate. This is responsibility and freedom, intertwined. Not to live with awareness of karma is to live with mindfulness of intention. Before speaking, we pause. What seed am I planting with these words? Before acting, we pause. What ripple will this action send? Before following a thought, we pause. What soil will this thought create in my mind? These pauses do not paralyze us. They empower us. They shift us from unconscious reaction to conscious response. And in that shift, our lives begin to transform. We begin to see that every choice matters. Not in the sense of overwhelming pressure, but in the sense of profound possibility. A single smile can lift someone from despair. A single act of forgiveness can heal a wound. A single moment of mindfulness can break a chain of harmful habit. The garden of karma is vast, and every small seed counts. And so, the teaching of karma is not one of fear. It is one of hope. It reminds us that we are never powerless, never trapped. Even in the darkest moments, we carry the ability to plant new seeds. Even in the heaviest soil, new life can grow. The echo of intention is always shaping us, and we can choose what song we send into the universe. This is where karma connects to the practice of compassion. For when we realize that everyone is shaped by their seeds, our judgment softens. We see that even those who harm us are acting from conditions, from ignorance, from their own tangle of craving and fear. This does not excuse harm, but it helps us respond with wisdom instead of vengeance. We may set boundaries, we may protect ourselves, but we need not poison our own hearts with hatred. Compassion itself becomes a seed, healing both others and ourselves. As we walk further into this teaching, we begin to notice karma, not only in grand events, but in the small rhythms of daily life. A harsh thought sours the mood of an entire morning. A single deep breath shifts the quality of an entire meeting. A gesture of kindness ripples out in ways we may never witness. Life is a constant field of seeds, blooming and fading, moment by moment. And so, the call is simple yet profound. Plant wisely. Speak with care. Act with compassion. Think with awareness. For the echo of intention is never silent. It is shaping you, shaping others, shaping the world. When we begin to see karma, not as punishment, but as the unfolding of cause and effect, our perspective on life changes. We stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What seeds are being watered right now? What seeds am I planting in return?" This shift turns us from victims of fate into participants in growth. It restores dignity to our choices and gives us back the power to shape our own path. Of the most striking things about karma is its subtlety. We may expect it to show up as dramatic rewards or punishments, but more often it reveals itself in the texture of our inner life. A heart filled with resentment feels heavy, regardless of what success we achieve outside. A heart filled with gratitude feels light, even in the face of struggle. Karma does not wait for some distant afterlife to unfold. It is shaping our experience in this very moment. This is why the Buddha urged us to cultivate wholesome intentions, not out of fear of judgment, but out of wisdom. If anger burns within me, I am the first to feel the fire. If kindness flows through me, I am the first to feel the warmth. Every intention echoes first in the chamber of our own heart. This realization is both humbling and empowering. We carry the seeds of our own peace, as well as our own suffering. Consider the act of lying. A lie may protect us temporarily, may even seem harmless. But inside, it plants a seed of unease. We must remember the lie, carry the weight of deception, fear being exposed. Over time, these seeds grow into anxiety and mistrust. The person lied to may also suffer, losing confidence in others. Now compare this to the act of truthfulness. Speaking honestly may feel risky, but it plants seeds of integrity, trust, and respect. Over time, those seeds grow into relationships of safety and authenticity. The difference lies not in cosmic punishment, but in the natural unfolding of intention. Or think of generosity. When we give freely, even in small ways, the act itself plants joy in the heart. Neuroscientists now confirm what Buddhists have long known. Giving activates centers of the brain associated with happiness. The echo of intention is immediate. The smile on the recipient's face may fade in time, but the warmth of generosity lingers, shaping the giver's life as much as the receiver's. Karma reveals the deep interconnectedness of all beings. Our actions ripple outward, but they also ripple inward, sculpting the very fabric of our consciousness. The beauty of karma is that it always leaves the door open. No matter how many harmful seeds we have planted, there is always the possibility of planting new ones. Stories abound of people who, after years of causing harm, turn toward kindness and transform not only their own lives, but the lives of countless others. In Buddhist tradition, Angulimala, the murderer turned monk, is one such example. His past was filled with violence, yet through the guidance of the Buddha, he began planting seeds of compassion. His past did not vanish, but his future was reshaped. Karma is never a fixed sentence. It is an open field. This insight calls us to humility. We cannot always see the full ripple of our actions. A single harsh word may wound more deeply than we realize. A single gesture of compassion may inspire someone to change their entire path. Because we cannot see all the ripples, we practice care. We plant seeds of kindness, not for immediate reward, but because we trust the field of life to reflect back what we sow. And so, karma becomes a guide to ethical living. Instead of asking, "Is this allowed?" or "Will I get caught?" we ask, "What seed am I planting?" This question brings clarity. If an action plants fear, resentment, or greed, we pause. If it plants peace, love, or understanding, we move forward. Ethics becomes not a list of rules imposed from outside, but a living practice of planting wisely from within. Yet karma is not meant to trap us in constant calculation. If we obsess over every seed, we risk falling into anxiety. Am I doing enough? Will my future be safe? This, too, becomes another form of craving. Instead, karma invites us into a gentle awareness. We do not need to be perfect gardeners. We simply need to keep tending, watering what is wholesome, pulling weeds when they arise, trusting that over time the garden will flourish. Karma also teaches patience. Seeds do not bloom overnight. A kind act may not be recognized immediately. A harmful habit may not show its full consequences right away. But just as a seed beneath the soil is slowly gathering strength, intentions are slowly shaping reality. We practice with faith, knowing that each moment matters, even if results are unseen. This patience is vital in times of difficulty. When life feels unfair, when suffering strikes without clear cause, the mind rushes to blame karma. This must be punishment for something I did. But Buddhism reminds us that karma is only one part of the picture. Life is shaped by countless causes and conditions: genetics, environment, society, chance. Karma interacts with these, but it is not the sole author of our story. The teaching is not meant to burden us with guilt, but to empower us with possibility. No matter what conditions we inherit, our intentions today matter. Our choices now create ripples for tomorrow. In this way, karma becomes a source of compassion, not only for ourselves, but for others. When we see someone acting out of anger, greed, or ignorance, we recognize the seeds that drive them. We see that they too are caught in the web of conditions. This does not mean we excuse harm, but it softens our judgment. We respond with wisdom, setting boundaries when needed, but without hatred. For we know that hatred plants only more hatred, while compassion plants the possibility of healing. The echo of intention also helps us navigate forgiveness. When someone has harmed us, the mind clings to anger, demanding repayment. But holding on to anger only plants more suffering in our own hearts. Forgiveness is not about erasing the past or denying harm. It is about choosing to plant seeds of peace instead of seeds of bitterness. We forgive not to free the other person, but to free ourselves. In this way, forgiveness becomes an act of wise karma, an intention that echoes peace into the future. The more deeply we understand karma, the more we realize that we are always shaping the world, whether we mean to or not. A parent's words shape a child's heart. A leader's choices shape the lives of many. A stranger's smile can shift the course of a day. No action is too small to matter. This awareness does not burden us. It ennobles us. It reminds us that we are participants in something vast, a web of interconnection where each seed contributes to the whole. And so, living with karma is not about fear of punishment or hope for reward. It is about aligning our intentions with the qualities we wish to see flourish in the world. If we want peace, we plant peace. If we want love, we plant love. If we want wisdom, we plant wisdom. The field will mirror what we sow in its own time, in its own way. As we close this part of the journey, let us hold this image. Every moment is a handful of seeds. We choose what to scatter. We cannot control every condition, but we can choose what we plant. And in that choice lies our freedom. From here, our path leads deeper still. For if karma shows us how our actions ripple outward, the next teaching shows us why nothing arises alone. The Buddha revealed that all things are empty of fixed existence. They arise in dependence, like threads in a vast web. To understand this spaciousness of emptiness is to loosen our clinging even more, and to discover a freedom greater than we imagined. There is a teaching in Buddhism that many people resist at first, because it seems too strange, too unsettling, even frightening. It is the teaching of emptiness, shunyata. At first hearing, the word emptiness sounds bleak, as though life were meaningless, hollow, void of worth. But this is not what the Buddha revealed. Emptiness is not a cold abyss. It is spaciousness, openness, the profound recognition that nothing exists on its own, sealed off, unchanging. Emptiness is the key that unlocks freedom, because it reveals that everything is interdependent, fluid, alive with possibility. To understand emptiness, we must first look at how we usually see the world. We assume things have fixed identities. This is a table. This is a person. This is success. This is failure. We believe these labels are solid, permanent. But if we look more closely, we see that everything is made of conditions. The table is wood, but the wood is sunlight, soil, rain, air. The person is a body, but the body is food, breath, water, ancestors. Even our thoughts are conditions shaped by memories, culture, emotions, and countless unseen influences. Nothing exists independently. Everything arises because of everything else. This is emptiness, the absence of fixed, separate existence. It does not mean nothing exists at all. It means nothing exists by itself. It means every form is a dance of causes and conditions, constantly changing, constantly flowing. When we truly see this, suffering begins to loosen. Why? Because much of our suffering comes from clinging to things as though they were permanent. We cling to youth, but the body changes. We cling to relationships, but people grow and shift. We cling to identities, but life keeps moving. Emptiness shows us that impermanence is not a failure of life. It is the very nature of life. Imagine holding an ice cube in your hand. If you think the ice cube must remain ice forever, you will suffer as it melts. But if you understand that ice is simply water in a temporary form, then the melting is no tragedy. It is transformation. Emptiness invites us to see the world this way. A flower wilts, but its nutrients return to the soil, nourishing new life. A relationship ends, but its lessons shape the heart, preparing it for deeper love. Our own breath arises and fades, but it sustains life with each cycle. Nothing is lost. It only changes form. This understanding does not make loss painless, but it makes it bearable. It allows us to grieve without despair, to love without fear, to live without clinging. For when we see the spaciousness of emptiness, we recognize that everything is connected and nothing truly disappears. Emptiness also reveals the illusion of a fixed self. We walk through the world believing, I am this person, with this identity, this story, this role. We cling to our name, our job, our reputation, our possessions, as though they define who we are. But look closer. The self is not a solid thing. It is a flowing process. Our bodies change every moment. Our thoughts shift constantly. Our moods rise and fall. Who we were 10 years ago is not who we are today, and who we are today will not be who we are tomorrow. To cling to a fixed self is to cling to smoke. When we release that clinging, we find freedom. This does not mean we vanish. It means we expand. The self is not a prison. It is a window. When we stop gripping it tightly, we discover the vastness beyond. We discover that we are not only individuals, but part of the great web of existence. We are not just isolated beings struggling to survive. We are threads woven into a tapestry, each thread holding and supported by countless others. This spaciousness changes the way we relate to others. If I see myself as separate and fixed, I easily fall into judgment. That person is bad. That person is my enemy. That person is not me. But when I see emptiness, I recognize that others too are conditions in motion. Their anger arises from pain, their cruelty from ignorance, their joy from kindness. Nothing is fixed. This recognition awakens compassion. I no longer see others as locked in their worst moments. I see them as beings in process. Just like me. To live with the inside of emptiness is to relax our grip on certainty. We no longer need to force life into rigid categories of good and bad, success and failure, permanent and broken. We can meet life as it flows, allowing forms to change, allowing identities to shift, allowing relationships to evolve. This is not passivity, it is presence. It is living in alignment with the truth of impermanence. Think of the sky. Clouds drift in, clouds drift out. Some are dark, some are bright, some heavy with rain, some light with sun. If we identify only with the clouds, life feels chaotic, unstable. But if we rest as the sky itself vast, spacious, allowing, then the clouds are no threat. They come, they go, and the sky remains. Emptiness is this recognition. We are not the fleeting clouds of conditions, but the spaciousness that holds them all. This insight calls us to humility. We cannot always see the full ripple of our actions. A single harsh word may wound more deeply than we realize. A single gesture of compassion may inspire someone to change their entire path. Because we cannot see all the ripples, we practice care. We plant seeds of kindness, not for immediate reward, but because we trust the field of life to reflect back what we sow. And so, karma becomes a guide to ethical living. Instead of asking, "Is this allowed?" or "Will I get caught?" We ask, what seed am I planting? This question brings clarity. If an action plants fear, resentment, or greed, we pause. If it plants peace, love, or understanding, we move forward. Ethics becomes not a list of rules imposed from outside, but a living practice of planting wisely from within. Yet karma is not meant to trap us in constant calculation. If we obsess over every seed, we risk falling into anxiety. Am I doing enough? Will my future be safe? This, too, becomes another form of craving. Instead, karma invites us into a gentle awareness. We do not need to be perfect gardeners. We simply need to keep tending, watering what is wholesome, pulling weeds when they arise, trusting that over time the garden will flourish. Karma also teaches patience. Seeds do not bloom overnight. A kind act may not be recognized immediately. A harmful habit may not show its full consequences right away. But just as a seed beneath the soil is slowly gathering strength, intentions are slowly shaping reality. We practice with faith, knowing that each moment matters even if results are unseen. This patience is vital in times of difficulty. When life feels unfair, when suffering strikes without clear cause, the mind rushes to blame karma. This must be punishment for something I did. But Buddhism reminds us that karma is only one part of the picture. Life is shaped by countless causes and conditions: genetics, environment, society, chance. Karma interacts with these, but it is not the sole author of our story. The teaching is not meant to burden us with guilt, but to empower us with possibility. No matter what conditions we inherit, our intentions today matter. Our choices now create ripples for tomorrow. In this way, karma becomes a source of compassion, not only for ourselves, but for others. When we see someone acting out of anger, greed, or ignorance, we recognize the seeds that drive them. We see that they, too, are caught in the web of conditions. This does not mean we excuse harm, but it softens our judgment. We respond with wisdom, setting boundaries when needed, but without hatred. For we know that hatred plants only more hatred, while compassion plants the possibility of healing. The echo of intention also helps us navigate forgiveness. When someone has harmed us, the mind clings to anger, demanding repayment. But holding on to anger only plants more suffering in our own hearts. Forgiveness is not about erasing the past or denying harm. It is about choosing to plant seeds of peace instead of seeds of bitterness. We forgive not to free the other person, but to free ourselves. In this way, forgiveness becomes an act of wise karma, an intention that echoes peace into the future. The more deeply we understand karma, the more we realize that we are always shaping the world, whether we mean to or not. A parent's words shape a child's heart. A leader's choices shape the lives of many. A stranger's smile can shift the course of a day. No action is too small to matter. This awareness does not burden us. It ennobles us. It reminds us that we are participants in something vast, a web of interconnection where each seed contributes to the whole. And so, living with karma is not about fear of punishment or hope for reward. It is about alignment, aligning our intentions with the qualities we wish to see flourish in the world. If we want peace, we plant peace. If we want love, we plant love. If we want wisdom, we plant wisdom. The field will mirror what we sow in its own time, in its own way. As we close this part of the journey, let us hold this image. Every moment is a handful of seeds. We choose what to scatter. We cannot control every condition, but we can choose what we plant. And in that choice lies our freedom. From here, our path leads deeper still. For if karma shows us how our actions ripple outward, the next teaching shows us why nothing arises alone. The Buddha revealed that all things are empty of fixed existence. They arise in dependence, like threads in a vast web. To understand this spaciousness of emptiness is to loosen our clinging even more, and to discover a freedom greater than we imagined. There is a teaching in Buddhism that many people resist at first because it seems too strange, too unsettling, even frightening. It is the teaching of emptiness shunyata. At first hearing, the word emptiness sounds bleak, as though life were meaningless, hollow, void of worth. But this is not what the Buddha revealed. Emptiness is not a cold abyss. It is spaciousness, openness, the profound recognition that nothing exists on its own, sealed off, unchanging. Emptiness is the key that unlocks freedom, because it reveals that everything is interdependent, fluid, alive with possibility. To understand emptiness, we must first look at how we usually see the world. We assume things have fixed identities. This is a table, this is a person, this is success, this is failure. We believe these labels are solid, permanent. But if we look more closely, we see that everything is made of conditions. The table is wood, but the wood is sunlight, soil, rain, air. The person is a body, but the body is food, breath, water, ancestors. Even our thoughts are conditions shaped by memories, culture, emotions, and countless unseen influences. Nothing exists independently. Everything arises because of everything else. This is emptiness, the absence of fixed, separate existence. It does not mean nothing exists at all. It means nothing exists by itself. It means every form is a dance of causes and conditions, constantly changing, constantly flowing. When we truly see this, suffering begins to loosen. Why? Because much of our suffering comes from clinging to things as though they were permanent. We cling to youth, but the body changes. We cling to relationships, but people grow and shift. We cling to identities, but life keeps moving. Emptiness shows us that impermanence is not a failure of life. It is the very nature of life. Imagine holding an ice cube in your hand. If you think the ice cube must remain ice forever, you will suffer as it melts. But if you understand that ice is simply water in a temporary form, then the melting is no tragedy. It is transformation. Emptiness invites us to see the world this way. A flower wilts, but its nutrients return to the soil, nourishing new life. A relationship ends, but its lessons shape the heart, preparing it for deeper love. Our own breath arises and fades, but it sustains life with each cycle. Nothing is lost. It only changes form. This understanding does not make loss painless, but it makes it bearable. It allows us to grieve without despair, to love without fear, to live without clinging. For when we see the spaciousness of emptiness, we recognize that everything is connected and nothing truly disappears. Emptiness also reveals the illusion of a fixed self. We walk through the world believing, I am this person, with this identity, this story, this role. We cling to our name, our job, our reputation, our possessions, as though they define who we are. But look closer. The self is not a solid thing. It is a flowing process. Our bodies change every moment. Our thoughts shift constantly. Our moods rise and fall. Who we were 10 years ago is not who we are today, and who we are today will not be who we are tomorrow. To cling to a fixed self is to cling to smoke. When we release that clinging, we find freedom. This does not mean we vanish. It means we expand. The self is not a prison. It is a window. When we stop gripping it tightly, we discover the vastness beyond. We discover that we are not only individuals, but part of the great web of existence. We are not just isolated beings struggling to survive. We are threads woven into a tapestry, each thread holding and supported by countless others. This spaciousness changes the way we relate to others. If I see myself as separate and fixed, I easily fall into judgment. That person is bad. That person is my enemy. That person is not me. But when I see emptiness, I recognize that others, too, are conditions in motion. Their anger arises from pain, their cruelty from ignorance, their joy from kindness. Nothing is fixed. This recognition awakens compassion. I no longer see others as locked in their worst moments. I see them as beings in process. Just like me. To live with the inside of emptiness is to relax our grip on certainty. We no longer need to force life into rigid categories of good and bad, success and failure, permanent and broken. We can meet life as it flows, allowing forms to change, allowing identities to shift, allowing relationships to evolve. This is not passivity, it is presence. It is living in alignment with the truth of impermanence. Think of the sky. Clouds drift in, clouds drift out. Some are dark, some are bright, some heavy with rain, some light with sun. If we identify only with the clouds, life feels chaotic, unstable. But if we rest as the sky itself, vast, spacious, allowing, then the clouds are no threat. They come, they go, and the sky remains. Emptiness is this recognition. We are not the fleeting clouds of conditions, but the spaciousness that holds them all. This recognition frees us from fear. Fear thrives on the belief in permanence. I must keep this forever. I must protect this at all costs. But when we see that nothing was ever ours to keep, fear softens. Love becomes freer. Joy becomes deeper, because we stop demanding eternity. We can hold a moment fully without needing it to last forever. The Buddha once held up a flower before his disciples. Most waited for words, for an explanation. Only one disciple smiled, understanding silently. The flower itself was the teaching. In its fragile beauty, already fading, it revealed emptiness. It was not a fixed object. It was rain, sunlight, soil, air, time, all woven together in delicate form. To see the flower was to see the universe. To smile at the flower was to embrace impermanence as beauty, not tragedy. And so, emptiness is not a void to fear, but a door to walk through. It reveals that life is not brittle but fluid, not meaningless, but deeply interconnected. It shows us that we do not need to cling so desperately, because nothing is ever truly lost. It only changes form. This is the spaciousness of emptiness, the freedom that arises when we let go of the illusion of permanence. To live with emptiness is to live with freedom. But this freedom is not about escaping life. It is about entering life more fully. When we no longer demand that things remain fixed, we can finally allow them to be alive. We stop clutching, and in that release, we begin to taste the richness of every moment. Take relationships, for example. So much suffering arises because we want people to stay exactly as they are. We fall in love with someone's smile, their kindness, their energy, and we want that version of them to last forever. But people change. Their moods shift, their needs evolve, their bodies age. If we cling to who they were yesterday, we miss the truth of who they are today. Emptiness teaches us to love dynamically, to embrace the living flow of another person without trying to trap them in a fixed form. This is not a lesser love, it is a deeper love, one that honors growth instead of resisting it. The same is true of ourselves. We carry so much pain from clinging to identities that no longer fit. Perhaps we defined ourselves by our career, and when it changed, we felt lost. Perhaps we defined ourselves by our youth, and as the body aged, we felt diminished. Perhaps we defined ourselves by our failures, carrying them like heavy stones long after the moment had passed. Emptiness invites us to put these stones down. It reminds us that identity is not fixed, it is fluid. Who we are is not bound to a single moment, a single role, a single story. We are spaciousness itself, capable of transformation, capable of renewal. This truth can feel like a loss at first. If nothing is fixed, where do we stand? But look closer. Emptiness is not nothingness. It is possibility. A rigid block of stone cannot change, but empty space can become anything. The absence of a fixed self does not erase us. It liberates us. It means we are not trapped in the past. We are not doomed to repeat old mistakes. We are not limited to old roles. We are free to grow, to expand, to awaken in every moment. Imagine standing on the shore, watching waves crash and fade. If we cling to a single wave, we will suffer as it disappears. But if we recognize that the ocean is endless, we do not mourn one wave. We celebrate the movement of the sea itself. Emptiness shifts our perspective from clinging to single waves to resting in the ocean of being. This understanding also reshapes our relationship with suffering. Pain will still come. Loss will still pierce us. But emptiness shows us that suffering itself is not fixed. It too is a process, a wave in motion. Grief rises, softens, transforms. Fear comes, lingers, dissolves. Joy blooms, fades, returns in new forms. When we stop clinging to the idea that suffering will last forever, we discover resilience. We realize that we can survive storms because no storm is. Eternal emptiness also reveals the radical truth of interconnection. If nothing exists independently, then everything exists together. The food we eat is sunlight captured in plants, rain carried through soil, hands that harvested, trucks that transported, people who prepared. Every bite is the universe feeding us. Every breath is the universe sustaining us. We are not separate beings struggling alone. We are woven into the fabric of all life. Recognition changes how we act in the world. If I see myself as separate, I may exploit, consume, take without care. But if I see that I am part of the same web, then harming others is harming myself. Caring for the earth, for people, for creatures, becomes natural, because I no longer see them as other. Compassion arises not as a duty, but as a natural expression of wisdom. In modern life, where individualism is often glorified, emptiness feels countercultural. We are told to build brands, identities, personal empires, as though the self were a fortress to defend. But emptiness reveals that the self is not a fortress, it is a window. The more open the window, the more light flows through. To live with emptiness is to live transparently, without the heavy burden of masks and defenses. It is to show up as we are, flowing, changing, alive. Some fear that if the self is empty, then morality collapses. If nothing is fixed, they ask, why not do whatever we want? But emptiness does not erase ethics. It deepens it. When we see that all beings are interdependent, we recognize that every action ripples through the whole. We act with care not because a rule tells us to, but because wisdom shows us that harming another is harming ourselves. Emptiness is not nihilism, it is compassion in its purest form. The practice of meditation helps us experience this truth directly. As we sit and observe, we notice that thoughts come and go. Emotions rise and fall. Sensations appear and vanish. If we look closely, there is no solid self holding them all together. There is only awareness, vast and open, like a sky holding clouds. To rest in this awareness is to taste emptiness, not as an idea, but as a living reality. And from that taste, a new way of living emerges. We stop clinging to certainty and allow mystery. We stop demanding permanence and allow change. We stop isolating ourselves and allow connection. Life becomes less about defending, more about flowing. Less about holding, more about opening. As we close this part, let us hold the image of the sky. Clouds may form and dissolve, storms may rage and pass, but the sky remains vast, open, untouched. In the same way, emptiness is not something to fear. It is the spaciousness that holds all of life, the openness that allows everything to be. To see this is to find freedom not from life, but in life. And now, with this understanding of emptiness, we are ready to explore how compassion arises naturally from this view. For when we see that nothing is separate, love becomes not a choice, but a necessity. The next step on our journey is the boundless heart of compassion, the practice that transforms emptiness into action, wisdom into love. When we look deeply into emptiness, into the truth that nothing exists independently, something extraordinary happens. The heart begins to soften. The rigid walls of separation crumble. We realize that we are not isolated islands, but waves of the same ocean. From this realization, compassion arises not as a forced duty, not as an abstract virtue, but as the natural response of a heart that sees clearly. Compassion in Buddhism is not pity. It is not looking down on someone and saying, "You poor thing." True compassion is recognizing ourselves in others, seeing that their suffering is our suffering, their joy our joy. When we see that we are all made of the same conditions, birth, aging, sickness, death, then we know that no one's pain is foreign. We recognize our shared humanity, and from that recognition flows tenderness. Think about the last time you saw someone cry. Perhaps a stranger on a train, or a friend confiding in you. In that moment, your heart may have stirred without effort. You did not need to think, "I should feel compassion." You simply felt it. That stirring is the natural response of interconnection. Compassion is built into us, but it is often buried under layers of fear, judgment, and busyness. The practice of Buddhism is not about creating compassion out of nothing. It is about uncovering the compassion that has always been there. The Buddha compared compassion to a mother's love for her child, boundless, unconditional, protective. But he did not limit compassion to family or tribe. He expanded it to all beings, everywhere, without exception. Even to those who cause harm, because they too are caught in ignorance, craving, and suffering. This universal compassion is not easy, but it is liberating. For when our compassion is boundless, our heart is boundless. No longer caged by hatred, we become free. In modern life, compassion is often seen as weakness. We are told to be tough, to protect ourselves, to compete. But the truth is the opposite. Compassion requires strength, the strength to remain open in the face of pain, the strength to care when it would be easier to turn away. Anger is easy. Indifference is easy. Compassion is courage. It is choosing to keep the heart open when the world tempts us to close. This openness transforms suffering. When we suffer alone, the pain feels unbearable. But when someone shares our suffering with compassion, the weight lightens. The pain may not vanish, but it becomes bearable. A kind word, a listening ear, a gentle presence, these can make the difference between despair and resilience. Compassion is the medicine that heals not by erasing wounds, but by holding them with love. Compassion also transforms joy. When we feel compassion, another person's happiness becomes our happiness. We rejoice when others succeed, when others heal, when others shine. Instead of envy, we feel delight. This quality is called mudita, sympathetic joy. It expands the heart, allowing us to share in the abundance of life. No longer limited to our own small victories, we celebrate the victories of the world. The practice of compassion begins with presence. To be compassionate, we must first notice. We must pause long enough to see the suffering around us, the tired eyes of a cashier, the frustration of a coworker, the loneliness of a neighbor. So often, we are too absorbed in our own craving to notice. But when mindfulness sharpens our vision, compassion awakens. The world is full of silent suffering, waiting to be met with gentle eyes. From noticing, we move to action. Compassion is not only a feeling, it is a response. It is bringing soup to a sick friend, offering a smile to a stranger, standing up against injustice, forgiving when it is hard. Compassion does not always require grand gestures. Often, it is the smallest acts: steady attention, Kind words, patient listening that heal the deepest wounds. The danger is burnout. Many who try to live with compassion give until they are empty, until resentment grows. But true compassion is not self-sacrifice. It is not abandoning ourselves to save others. True compassion includes ourselves. Just as we recognize the suffering of others, we must recognize our own suffering. Just as we care for others, we must care for ourselves. This balance is essential. Without it, compassion collapses into martyrdom. With it, compassion becomes sustainable, radiant, endless. The Buddha often spoke of mimi tta-loving-kindness- as the foundation of compassion. Loving kindness is the wish for all beings to be happy. Compassion is the wish for all beings to be free from suffering. They are two wings of the same bird. When we practice loving kindness, we water the soil of compassion. We learn to hold ourselves and others in the light of goodwill, softening the judgments that divide us. A simple practice can reveal this truth. Sit quietly and bring to mind someone you love. Imagine them smiling. Imagine them safe. Imagine them at peace. Whisper inwardly, "May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease." Then expand this wish outward to friends, to strangers, even to those you find difficult. At first, the mind resists, but over time, the heart expands. We realize that everyone, no matter how lost or harmful, longs for the same things: safety, love, peace. Seeing this, compassion flows naturally. Compassion does not eliminate boundaries. Sometimes the most compassionate act is saying no, walking away, or refusing harm. Compassion is not allowing abuse. It is not letting others destroy themselves or us. Compassion is wisdom in action, acting in ways that reduce suffering, not increase it. Sometimes that means gentle embrace. Sometimes that means firm resistance. The thread is always love. The fruits of compassion are vast. When compassion fills the heart, loneliness eases because we feel connected to all beings. Anxiety eases because we stop living only for ourselves. Bitterness eases because we stop clinging to grudges. Compassion does not erase life's pain, but it gives us the strength to hold it without breaking. It turns the heart into a vast container, wide enough to hold both joy and sorrow. As we look deeper, we see that compassion is not optional. It is not a decoration for spiritual life. It is the very essence of awakening. Without compassion, wisdom becomes cold. Without wisdom, compassion becomes blind. Together, they form the complete path. Seeing emptiness awakens compassion, and practicing compassion deepens our experience of emptiness. The two are inseparable. Compassion becomes most powerful when tested. It is easy to feel tender toward those we already love, those who mirror our values, those who treat us kindly. But the deeper practice asks, can we extend compassion even to those who are difficult, those who hurt us, those we fear? This does not mean excusing harmful behavior. It means looking beneath the surface and recognizing that suffering drives even the cruelest actions. When someone lashes out in anger, we see the pain beneath their rage. When someone clings greedily, we see the fear beneath their grasping. Compassion looks beyond the mask and touches the wounded heart. This is not romantic idealism. It is practical wisdom. Hatred only breeds more hatred. Vengeance only breeds more vengeance. But compassion has the power to break cycles. History is full of moments where compassion, not violence, transformed enemies into allies, strangers into friends. Compassion is revolutionary, not because it ignores harm, but because it refuses to multiply it. Yet compassion also requires discernment. It is not about drowning in the suffering of others or losing ourselves in endless giving. True compassion sees clearly. If I collapse, I cannot help. If I burn out, I cannot serve. And so, self-compassion becomes essential. We speak to ourselves with the same kindness we offer a friend. We rest when we are tired. We forgive ourselves when we stumble. We remember that we, too, are worthy of care. Without this balance, compassion turns into exhaustion. With it, compassion becomes inexhaustible. Self compassion can feel unnatural, especially in cultures that glorify self-criticism and constant striving. Many of us speak to ourselves with words we would never say to another. We scold, shame, belittle. But when we pause and ask, would I speak this way to someone I love? We begin to soften. We replace harshness with gentleness, judgment with patience. This is not indulgence, it is wisdom. For a heart that is nourished with kindness can offer kindness to others without fear of running dry. The practice of compassion also reshapes how we face global suffering. In a world filled with injustice, violence, and inequality, it is easy to feel overwhelmed. We ask, what difference can I make? The problems are too vast, but compassion reminds us that every action matters. We may not end all suffering, but we can ease suffering where we stand. We can speak truth in small circles, offer care in small ways, plant seeds of justice and peace. Compassion does not demand that we fix everything. It asks only that we do what we can, with the heart we have, in the place we are. And when many hearts act this way, change begins. Compassion ripples outward, just as karma ripples outward. A single act may inspire others. A single word may shift a life. We cannot measure the full impact of compassion, but we can trust it. Just as seeds grow in hidden soil before breaking through, acts of compassion may bear fruit in ways unseen. Compassion also reshapes how we face death. When we fear death, we cling desperately to life, and that clinging creates suffering. But when compassion fills the heart, we meet death differently. We see that death, too, is part of the flow, part of the interconnection. We grieve, but we also release. We recognize that those we love are never truly separate, never truly lost. They live in the web of conditions, in the breath of the earth, in the kindness they left behind. Compassion allows us to mourn without despair, to love without fear, to trust the cycle of life and death as part of the great whole. At its deepest, compassion becomes boundless. The Buddha spoke of the Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are not just emotions. They are states of being. When cultivated, they become the natural dwelling place of the awakened heart. Compassion, in this sense, is not something we turn on and off. It becomes the air we breathe, the ground we walk, the lens through which we see the world. This boundless compassion is not sentimental. It is vast and steady, like a mountain. It does not collapse under pain. It does not withdraw in fear. It remains open, even in the face of suffering. Imagine a vast river, carrying away dirt, debris, pollution, yet always flowing, always renewing. Compassion is like that river, absorbing the sorrows of the world and transforming them into the strength to keep loving. To cultivate this boundless compassion, we begin small. We notice suffering in ourselves and others. We respond with care. We practice again and again until compassion becomes our natural response. Like a muscle, it grows stronger with use. And in time, the heart expands beyond the limits of preference, beyond the borders of tribe, beyond the walls of self. This expansion brings joy. Compassion is not a burden, but a gift. When we love, we feel alive. When we care, we feel connected. When we serve, we feel purposeful. Compassion gives life meaning, not by erasing suffering, but by transforming it into connection. A life without compassion is empty, no matter how rich or successful. A life with compassion is full, no matter how simple. And so, We see that compassion is not an oxyopathic, it is the natural flowering of wisdom. When we see emptiness, we see interconnection. When we see interconnection, we feel compassion. And when we feel compassion, we discover freedom, not freedom from suffering, but freedom in the midst of suffering. As this part of our journey closes, let us carry this truth. Compassion is not weakness. It is not exhaustion. It is not pity. Compassion is strength. It is courage. It is the heart's natural response to seeing clearly. And when compassion guides us, life becomes lighter, brighter, more connected. The path now leads us to the next challenge of modern life, anxiety. In a world full of uncertainty, fear tightens its grip on countless hearts. Anxiety steals peace, even in moments of safety. How does Buddhism speak to this restless fear? How can mindfulness and compassion transform anxiety into calm presence? This is the journey we now take. Anxiety has become one of the defining experiences of our age. We see it everywhere, etched into the faces of commuters gripping their coffee cups, woven into the restless scrolling of phones late at night, whispered in the endless "what if" questions that haunt our minds. Anxiety is the shadow of a culture obsessed with speed, achievement, and control. It feeds on uncertainty, on the gap between what we want life to be and what it actually is. At its core, anxiety is a story the mind tells. Something bad is coming. I don't know when, I don't know how, but danger is near. Sometimes this story is tied to real challenges, bills due, health concerns, deadlines looming. But more often, anxiety spins beyond reality. It magnifies small risks into unbearable threats, rehearses imaginary disasters, and convinces us that peace is impossible until every outcome is guaranteed. The cruel trick is that anxiety promises safety. It says, if I worry enough, I will be prepared. But in truth, worry does not prevent pain. It multiplies it. We suffer once in reality and 1,000 times in imagination. Anxiety steals our breath, clouds our judgment, tightens our chest, and robs us of sleep. It builds a prison of fear in which the present moment is always sacrificed to an imagined future. Buddhism meets anxiety with profound clarity. It does not shame us for feeling fear. It does not demand that we simply think positive or force calm. Instead, it invites us to turn toward anxiety with gentle awareness. The Buddha taught that suffering cannot be healed by avoidance. It must be met, seen, and understood. Anxiety is no different. When we bring it into the light of mindfulness, it begins to soften. Mindfulness is the practice of presence. It is the art of resting attention in what is happening right now, without judgment, without needing it to be different. For someone caught in anxiety, this is radical. Anxiety thrives on the future. Mindfulness anchors us in the present. The anxious mind says, what if tomorrow falls apart? The mindful breath says, here is this inhale. Here is this exhale. Anxiety cannot survive in full presence because presence dissolves the imagined future. Consider the simple act of walking. In anxiety, we rush, lost in thought, barely aware of our steps. But with mindfulness, each step becomes an anchor. Heel touches ground, weight shifts forward, breath rises and falls. For a few moments, the storm of thoughts quiets. We realize that in this step, in this breath, we are safe. Anxiety may still whisper, but it no longer rules. This practice does not erase uncertainty. Life remains unpredictable. But mindfulness teaches us that safety was never about controlling the future. It was about resting in the present. In the present, we have breath. In the present, we have ground beneath our feet. In the present, we have strength to meet what comes. Anxiety shrinks when we return again and again to this truth. Another powerful antidote to anxiety is compassion. Anxiety often feels isolating. We believe we are the only ones drowning in fear, the only ones unable to cope. But when we look around, we see that anxiety touches nearly everyone. Each smile hides worries. Each life holds struggles. To recognize this is to feel less alone. Compassion reminds us, this fear is part of being human. Others feel it too. And from that recognition, we can hold our own anxiety with tenderness instead of shame. There is also the practice of naming. The Buddha taught, when a feeling arises, know it as it is. When anxiety floods us, we can whisper inwardly, this is fear. This is worry. This is the body tightening. Naming creates space. Instead of drowning, we begin to observe. Instead of being the fear, we are the awareness of fear. And awareness is larger than any feeling. Like the sky holding storms, awareness can hold even the fiercest anxiety without being broken. Modern science echoes this. Studies show that labeling emotions reduces their intensity. The act of saying, this is anxiety, activates parts of the brain that calm the nervous system. The Buddha knew this thousands of years ago, not through machines, but through deep observation of the mind. He taught that by knowing our feelings clearly, we release their grip. Yet anxiety is persistent. It returns again and again. The practice, then, is not to destroy anxiety, but to change our relationship to it. Instead of fearing its arrival, we greet it like an old visitor. We say, here is worry again. Sit with me. I will breathe with you. When we stop fighting anxiety, it loses power. It may still visit, but it no longer controls the house of our mind. Breathing practices are especially powerful here. When anxiety tightens the chest, the breath becomes shallow, rapid. By slowing the breath, long inhales, steady exhales, we send signals of safety to the body. The nervous system calms. The heart rate slows. The mind begins to follow. Breath is the bridge between body and mind, the anchor that brings us home when anxiety tries to carry us away. Community also matters. Anxiety thrives in silence, in the belief that we must face it alone. But when we share our struggles with others, we realize that fear is universal. Supportive relationships remind us that we do not need to carry the weight alone. In Buddhist tradition, the Sangha, the community, is considered one of the 3 jewels of refuge. To sit with others, to breathe together, to share fears and hopes, is itself a medicine for anxiety. Perhaps the most radical teaching is this: anxiety itself can become a teacher. Every time anxiety arises, it shows us where we are clinging to control, where we are resisting uncertainty. If we listen, anxiety points directly to the places where freedom is possible. It says, here is where you are not trusting life. Here is where you are holding too tightly. In this way, anxiety becomes a guide, not an enemy to destroy, but a messenger to understand. And so, the practice of presence does not promise a life without anxiety. It promises a new relationship with it. Instead of being ruled by fear, we learn to walk with fear. Instead of collapsing into panic, we breathe into calm. Instead of fighting uncertainty, we rest in trust. This is not the quick fix of modern culture. It is a steady, gentle path of practice. But over time, it transforms. Imagine standing on the shore as waves crash. Anxiety says, I must stop the waves. Mindfulness says, I will stand, I will breathe, I will let the waves rise and fall. The waves do not stop, but the fear dissolves. We are no longer drowning. We are present, grounded, alive. The anxious mind craves certainty above all. It whispers, if only I could know exactly how things will turn out, then I would be at peace. But life does not work this way. The future cannot be pinned down, no matter how carefully we plan. The more we chase certainty, the more anxious we become. Buddhism offers a different path, Not certainty, but trust. Trust that whatever comes, we can meet it with presence. Trust that we have the strength to breathe, to adapt, to respond. This trust does not erase fear, but it softens it. It gives us the courage to step into the unknown without collapsing. Asterisk, one of the most common traps of anxiety is avoidance. We avoid the situations that trigger fear, hoping to stay safe. But avoidance only makes the fear grow stronger. The Buddha encouraged the opposite, gentle exposure. We turn toward our fears, little by little, breathing as we do. Afraid of speaking up? Begin with small words of honesty. Afraid of sitting in silence? Begin with one mindful breath. Each step into fear, supported by presence, plants seeds of courage. Anxiety shrinks not when we run, but when we face it with compassion. Another powerful practice is gratitude. Anxiety focuses on what could go wrong, what is missing, what is unsafe. Gratitude shifts the lens to what is already here, what is already enough. Each night, pausing to name 3 things we are grateful for can rewire the mind. The anxious brain, trained to scan for danger, slowly learns to scan for blessings. Gratitude does not deny hardship. It balances it. It reminds us that even in fear, life holds beauty. The Buddha also taught equanimity, the ability to remain steady in the face of both gain and loss, praise and blame, joy and sorrow. For the anxious mind, equanimity is medicine. Instead of swinging wildly with each change, we rest in balance. We realize that life will always bring both good and bad, but neither defines us fully. We are more than our circumstances. We are the awareness holding them all. Stories from the tradition illustrate this truth. A monk once lived in a small hut by the river. Every night, the wind howled and the river swelled, threatening to flood. At first, the monk was consumed by fear. He lay awake imagining disaster. But one night, exhausted, he sat by the river and simply watched. He saw the water rising, the trees bending, the stars shining above. In that stillness, he realized, the river will rise or it will not. The hut will stand or it will fall. But in this breath, I am here. From then on, the fear softened. He did not control the river, but he trusted his presence within it. Modern life gives us endless rivers to fear: financial instability, political turmoil, health crisis, personal losses. We cannot control them all, but we can choose how to meet them. Anxiety says, I must fix everything before I can rest. Presence says, I will rest in this moment, and from this rest, I will act with clarity. When we live this way, action becomes more effective. Because it is not clouded by panic. There is a gentle paradox here. The more we demand freedom from anxiety, the more anxious we become. But when we accept that anxiety is part of being human, it loosens its grip. We say, yes, fear is here. Yes, uncertainty is here. And still, I can breathe. Still, I can love. Still, I can live. This acceptance does not invite fear to stay forever. It simply stops feeding it. In time, we may even grow grateful for anxiety, for it shows us where our trust is weak, where our clinging is strong, where our presence is absent. Each wave of anxiety is an invitation to return to the breath, to return to the ground, to return to compassion. Anxiety, once seen as an enemy, becomes a teacher. As we complete this part of the journey, let us remember, anxiety is not a sign of failure. It is not proof of weakness. It is the mind's attempt to protect us, misguided but sincere. When we meet it with mindfulness and compassion, it transforms. It becomes less a prison and more a path back to the present, back to the heart, back to peace. And so, with presence as our guide, we are ready to face the next challenge: attachment. If anxiety is the fear of losing, attachment is the refusal to let go. Both bind the heart, both create suffering. The Buddha's teachings on letting go show us how to live with open hands, to love without clinging, to release without despair. This is where our journey now turns. Attachment is one of the deepest roots of human suffering. It is not the same as love, though many confuse the two. Love is open, generous, expansive. Attachment is tight, possessive, fearful. Love says, I want you to be happy. Attachment says, I want you to be mine. The Buddha saw this distinction clearly and taught that freedom arises not from abandoning love, but from releasing attachment. To understand attachment, we must first see its nature. The mind clings to people, possessions, ideas, even to versions of ourselves. We believe, if I hold on tightly enough, I will be safe. If I never let go, I will never lose. But the truth of impermanence makes this impossible. Everything changes. Everyone changes. When we cling to what cannot be held, we guarantee our own suffering. Think of sand held in the palm. If you close your hand tightly, the grains slip through your fingers. If you open your hand, the sand rests gently. Attachment is the tight fist. Letting go is the open palm. With an open palm, we can truly appreciate what is here, without fear of losing it. Attachment appears everywhere in daily life. In relationships, it shows up as jealousy, control, the desperate need for reassurance. We say, I cannot be happy without you. You must stay the same. You must fulfill my expectations. The relationship becomes a cage, not a sanctuary. Love suffocates under the weight of clinging. But when we release attachment, love breathes again. We say, I love you as you are, and I give you freedom to grow. This love is deeper, more resilient, because it does not demand possession. Attachment also shows up in material life. We cling to possessions as though they define us. A car, a house, a brand, a reputation. These become extensions of identity. We fear losing them, and that fear drives endless striving. But possessions cannot provide lasting peace. They age, break, fade, or pass into other hands. The more tightly we cling, the more fragile we feel. Freedom comes not from abandoning all things, but from loosening our grip. We can enjoy possessions without being possessed by them. Even ideas can become attachments. We cling to beliefs, to opinions, to political identities, as though our worth depends on being right. We argue, fight, divide, unable to see beyond our fixed views. But every perspective is partial, every belief conditioned by experience. When we hold views lightly, we remain open to learning. We can listen, we can grow, we can adapt. Attachment to ideas hardens the mind. Letting go makes it flexible, alive. Perhaps the most subtle attachment is to the self. We cling to an image of who we are: successful, attractive, intelligent, spiritual. We resist anything that threatens this image. We fear aging, failure, mistakes, because they crack the mask we wear. But the self, as we saw in the teaching of emptiness, is not fixed. It is a process, ever-changing. To cling to a fixed identity is to fight reality. To let go is to discover freedom. Letting go does not mean indifference. It does not mean abandoning relationships, possessions, or identity. It means holding them with openness, without fear. It means loving without clinging, enjoying without grasping, living without demanding permanence. It is the art of open hands. This art is cultivated through mindfulness. When we notice clinging, we pause. We ask, am I holding this too tightly? Am I demanding what life cannot give? With awareness, we soften our grip. We breathe. We release. At first, this feels terrifying. The mind screams, if I let go, I will lose everything. But in practice, the opposite happens. We lose nothing essential. We gain peace. Stories illuminate this truth. Once, a monk carried a heavy bag on a long journey. When asked why he looked so tired, he replied, "Because I cannot put down this bag." The teacher said, "Put it down then." The monk hesitated, fearing to lose what he carried. But when he finally released the bag, his body felt light, his steps free. The bag was never the problem. It was the refusal to let go. Our lives are full of such bags. Grudges, regrets, fears, expectations. We carry them for years, convinced they are part of us. But when we set them down, we realize how heavy they were, how unnecessary. Letting go is not loss. It is relief. This does not happen all at once. Letting go is a practice, moment by moment. We let go of a harsh word instead of replaying it. We let go of a minor disappointment instead of feeding resentment. We let go of yesterday so we can live today. Each release strengthens the muscle of freedom. And with each release, space opens. When the hand is clenched, it cannot hold anything new. When it opens, it can receive. Letting go creates room for joy, for love, for peace. Attachment clutters the heart with fear. Release clears it with spacioussness. As this teaching deepens, we begin to see that attachment and anxiety are close relatives. Anxiety fears losing what attachment clings to. Together, they bind us. Letting go cuts both chains at once. When we no longer cling, we no longer fear. When we no longer fear, we can finally rest. The heart of letting go is trust. We cling because we do not trust life. We believe that if we loosen our grip, everything will fall apart. But life has its own flow, its own rhythm. Seasons turn without our command. The sun rises without our effort. The body breathes even when we sleep. Letting go is trusting this flow, trusting that we are carried even when we are not in control. That trust is not passive resignation. It does not mean refusing to act. It means acting with openness instead of desperation. We still work, love, create, and care, but we do so with light hands, without trying to chain outcomes. This is the difference between rowing with the current and rowing against it. One exhausts us, the other carries us with strength we did not know we had. In relationships, letting go deepens intimacy. When we stop demanding that others meet every expectation, we begin to truly see them. We notice their laughter, their struggles, their growth. We allow them to change, to be human, to be free. Love becomes more vibrant because it is no longer about possession. It is about connection. A parent who lets go allows a child to grow. A friend who lets go allows another to evolve. A partner who lets go allows love to remain alive, not frozen in a single moment. Letting go also heals the wounds of the past. So many of us carry grudges, reliving old betrayals again and again. Each replay tightens the chain of suffering. The Buddha compared this to being struck by an arrow and striking ourselves with a second arrow of anger and resentment. The first arrow may not be in our control, but the second is. Letting go is dropping the second arrow. It is saying, I will not keep wounding myself for what is already past. Forgiveness arises naturally from this release. Forgiveness does not mean condoning harm or forgetting pain. It means choosing not to carry the weight any longer. It means opening the clenched fist of the heart. This release is not for the one who harmed us. It is for ourselves. Forgiveness is the gift of freedom we give to our own soul. In the realm of possessions, letting go brings clarity. A cluttered home reflects a cluttered mind. We cling to things we do not need, afraid of scarcity, afraid of emptiness. But when we release what no longer serves us, space opens. Space for breath, space for peace, space for what truly matters. Minimalism in this sense is not about living with nothing. It is about living without clinging. The same is true with ambitions. Dreams can inspire us, but when we cling to them, they can enslave us. We say, "I must succeed or I am nothing." This desperation drains joy from the journey. Letting go does not mean abandoning effort. It means releasing the demand for control. We give our best, but we do not tie our worth to results. This shift transforms work from a battlefield into a practice of presence. Perhaps the hardest letting go is of control itself. We spend so much energy trying to control the uncontrollable, other people, the future, even death. But the truth is that life has never been fully under our command. Control is a mirage. Letting go is acknowledging this, not with despair, but with peace. It is saying, "I will meet life as it comes, moment by moment." In this surrender, we find a strength deeper than control, the strength of resilience, of adaptability, of faith. Meditation is a training ground for this art. As we sit, thoughts arise. The mind clings. I must follow this. I must solve this. I must fix this. But with practice, we notice the thought, breathe, and let it pass. Each release in meditation is a rehearsal for release in life. We learn that we do not need to chase every thought, hold every feeling, control every moment. We learn to trust the spaciousness of awareness. Letting go is not a single act, but a way of living. It is the daily choice to open our hands, our hearts, our minds. It is the courage to love without chains, to live without fear, to trust without guarantees. And with each act of release, life becomes lighter. The burdens we thought we needed to carry dissolve. The love we feared to lose grows deeper. The peace we longed for quietly appears. As this part closes, remember, attachment is not love. Clinging is not safety. The tighter we hold, the more fragile we feel. The more we release, the freer we become. Letting go is not losing. It is gaining space, clarity, peace. It is discovering that open hands can hold the whole world. And now, with this art of release, we are ready to explore another crucial teaching, mindfulness in action. For it is not enough to let go in silence or meditation. The question is, how do we carry mindfulness into our daily lives, our work, our families, our struggles? The next step in our journey is to discover presence not only on the cushion, but in the world. Mindfulness is often pictured as a monk sitting silently beneath a tree, eyes half closed, breathing slowly. This image is beautiful, but incomplete. Mindfulness is not meant to stay on the cushion. It is meant to infuse every corner of our lives. The Buddha did not teach mindfulness only for moments of retreat. He taught it as a way of living, a way of walking, eating, speaking, working, and loving. Mindfulness in action is the bridge between inner peace and outer life. At its essence, mindfulness is remembering to be present. It is the simple, radical act of noticing what is happening right now. The body walking, the hand lifting a cup, the voice speaking words, the mind forming thoughts. It is awareness without judgment, presence without grasping. When mindfulness moves into action, our ordinary routines become extraordinary. Washing dishes becomes an act of meditation. Driving to work becomes an opportunity for stillness. Talking with a friend becomes a practice of deep listening. Life itself becomes the path. Modern culture tells us that multitasking is strength. We rush through meals while checking emails, listen halfway while planning responses, live each moment only as a stepping stone to the next. But this constant splitting of attention leaves us restless and unsatisfied. We are everywhere except here. Mindfulness restores us to the present. It teaches us to do one thing at a time, with full attention, with full presence. And when we live this way, even the smallest acts carry peace. Consider eating. In mindfulness, a meal is not fuel to consume quickly. It is a sacred encounter. We notice the colors of the food, the aroma rising, the texture as we chew. the nourishment entering the body. We also notice gratitude, the farmers, the rain, the sun, the countless hands that made this meal possible. Each bite becomes a miracle. Anxiety fades, craving softens, joy arises. Eating mindfully transforms not only our relationship to food, but to life itself. The same is true with listening. Most of the time, we do not listen. We wait to reply. We half hear words while forming responses, judgments, arguments. True listening is rare. But when we listen mindfully, we offer a profound gift. We set aside our own chatter and give full presence to the other. We hear not only their words, but their heart. We hear the suffering beneath anger, the longing beneath silence. This kind of listening can heal relationships, ease loneliness, even prevent conflict. Mindfulness in action turns conversations into compassion. Mindfulness also transforms work. In modern life, work is often rushed, pressured, driven by deadlines. We multitask, hurry, and stress. But when we bring mindfulness to work, even ordinary tasks gain depth. Typing becomes rhythm. Sweeping becomes meditation. Meetings become opportunities to practice patience and clarity. Mindfulness does not erase challenges, but it changes our relationship with them. Instead of drowning in stress, we stand steady in awareness. Instead of losing ourselves in tasks, we bring ourselves fully into them. Walking is another simple practice. Instead of rushing, lost in thought, we place one foot, then the other with awareness. Each step is an arrival. Each breath is a homecoming. We realize that we are not walking to the future. We are walking in the present. This practice can be done anywhere, on city streets, in office halls, in nature trails. Each mindful step plants peace on the earth. Mindfulness in action also means awareness of speech. Words have power to heal or harm, to unite or divide. The Buddha taught right speech, words that are true, kind, helpful, and timely. Before speaking, we pause. Is this true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? With mindfulness, our words become seeds of peace instead of weapons of harm. This does not mean silence. It means conscious speech. It means speaking with clarity instead of gossip, with honesty instead of flattery, with compassion instead of cruelty. Even technology can become a field of mindfulness. Phones, computers, and social media often scatter our attention, pulling us into endless distraction. But with mindfulness, we can use them differently. Before opening a device, we pause. Why am I doing this? What do I need right now? We choose presence over impulse. We set boundaries, breathe, and remember that screens are tools, not masters. Mindfulness does not reject technology. It teaches us to use it wisely, without losing ourselves. The power of mindfulness in action is that it turns ordinary life into practice. We do not need to escape to monasteries to find peace. Peace can be found in folding laundry, in answering emails, in driving children to school. Every moment is an invitation. Every act can be infused with awareness. This is the miracle of mindfulness. It does not add something new. It reveals the sacredness of what is already here. And this practice benefits not only us, but the world around us. A mindful person becomes an island of calm in turbulent seas. Their presence steadies others. Their patience diffuses tension. Their kindness ripples outward. In a society addicted to speed and distraction, a mindful person is revolutionary. They remind others of the possibility of presence, simply by being present themselves. Of course, mindfulness in action is not easy. The mind wanders. We forget again and again. But each forgetting is an opportunity to remember. Each return to presence strengthens the habit. The practice is not perfection, it is persistence. We fall, we rise, we return. Over time, mindfulness becomes less an effort and more a way of being. The fruits of this practice are profound. stress softens, joy increases. Relationships deepen. Work gains meaning. Life becomes less about rushing toward distant goals and more about living fully here and now. Mindfulness in action is not escape from the world. It is full engagement with the world, but with open eyes and an open heart. And so, mindfulness is not confined to meditation halls. It is the art of living. It is the practice of presence in every breath, every word, every step. And when we live this way, we discover that peace is not far away. Peace is here, in the act of living itself. Mindfulness in action also calls us to see suffering in the world with clear eyes. It is easy to rush through life blind to the pain around us. The exhaustion in a worker's face, the loneliness of an elder, the quiet despair of a child. But when mindfulness deepens, we notice. We pause, we respond. Action is no longer automatic. It becomes compassionate. We hold doors, offer smiles, share meals, listen deeply. These small gestures are not small at all. In the field of mindfulness, every act of kindness is sacred. There is a story told of a man who asked the Buddha, "What miracle do you perform?" The man expected tales of walking on water or summoning visions. The Buddha replied, "When I walk, I am walking. When I eat, I am eating. When I speak, I am speaking." The miracle was presence itself. The miracle was mindfulness in action. For what greater miracle is there than to be fully alive in this moment? This teaching challenges our modern habits. We are conditioned to think only grand achievements matter. But mindfulness reminds us that greatness lies in simplicity. Drinking tea with full awareness can be more transformative than climbing mountains of success without presence. Hugging a loved one with full attention can be more healing than endless therapy without listening. Mindfulness in action dignifies the ordinary, revealing that the sacred is always here. Yet mindfulness also requires courage. When we are present, we cannot hide from reality. We notice our impatience, our judgments, our pain. At first, this may feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is the doorway to transformation. Only when we see clearly can we heal. Only when we acknowledge suffering can we respond with compassion. Mindfulness is not always pleasant, but it is always liberating. In this way, mindfulness in action becomes a form of truth-telling. We no longer numb ourselves with distraction. We no longer pretend. We face what is, and by facing it, we free ourselves. For suffering thrives in the shadows of avoidance. Brought into the light of awareness, it begins to dissolve. Mindfulness in action also reshapes communities. Imagine a workplace where meetings are not rushed but mindful, where people listen before speaking, where respect guides every decision. Imagine families where meals are shared in presence, where phones are set aside, where gratitude fills the table. Imagine schools where children are taught to breathe before tests, to listen before responding, to notice the feelings in their own hearts. These are not fantasies. Across the world, mindfulness is transforming organizations, families, and cultures. And it begins with individuals willing to practice presence in daily life. Still, mindfulness is not about perfection. We will forget. We will fall into distraction, anger, craving. But each moment is a chance to begin again. This is the beauty of mindfulness. There is no failure, only returning. Each breath is an invitation back to the present. Each moment is new. Over time, mindfulness becomes more than a practice. It becomes identity. We no longer do mindfulness. We are mindful. Awareness becomes our natural state. We walk, speak, eat, work, love with presence, not because we force it, but because we have trained the heart to live this way. The scattered self dissolves, replaced by a steady, centered being. And when mindfulness in action matures, it leads to wisdom. We begin to see patterns, causes, and effects more clearly. We see how anger arises, how craving grows, how compassion heals. We see the truth of impermanence in each passing moment. This wisdom does not stay in the mind. It flows into action. We act more skillfully, more kindly, more courageously. Mindfulness becomes not only awareness, but wisdom in motion. As we bring this section to a close, let us remember, mindfulness is not an escape from life. It is the deepest way of living it. It is not limited to meditation halls or retreats. It is available in the office, the kitchen, the street, the classroom. It is available in traffic jams, in arguments, in laughter, in tears. Wherever there is breath, there can be mindfulness. And so, mindfulness in action is the art of living awake. It is the daily practice of being here, fully, with open eyes and open heart. It turns the ordinary into extraordinary, the routine into sacred, the fleeting into eternal. From here, our path leads to a final, profound teaching, acceptance and hope. After exploring suffering, impermanence, compassion, and mindfulness, we now ask, how do we live with all of this? How do we face the realities of pain and death without despair? How do we carry hope without clinging? The next step is to discover the gentle strength of acceptance and the quiet light of hope, the closing gift of the Buddhist path. Acceptance is one of the most misunderstood teachings of Buddhism. To many, the word sounds like surrender, like giving up. People fear that acceptance means passivity, that it means allowing injustice or resigning ourselves to suffering. But in truth, acceptance is not defeat. It is strength. It is the courage to see reality as it is, without denial, without distortion. It is the foundation upon which real change and true hope are built. At the root of much suffering lies resistance. We fight against life, against aging, against loss, against uncertainty, against pain. We say, this should not be happening. This cannot be happening. I refuse this moment, but life does not obey our refusal. The storm still comes, the body still changes, the loved one still departs. Resistance does not prevent suffering. It multiplies it. Acceptance dissolves this struggle. It does not erase pain, but it removes the extra layer of suffering that comes from fighting what already is. Imagine being caught in the rain. Resistance says, this is terrible. I hate this rain. Acceptance says, it is raining. The difference is subtle but profound. In both cases, you are wet. But in resistance, you are wet and angry. In acceptance, you are simply wet. Acceptance does not change the rain, but it changes your relationship to it. And in that shift, peace arises. Acceptance is not indifference. It does not mean we stop acting. If someone is hungry, we accept that hunger is real, and then we feed them. If injustice exists, we accept its reality, and then we work to change it. Acceptance is seeing clearly before acting wisely. Without acceptance, action is blind, fueled by anger and denial. With acceptance, action is grounded, compassionate, effective. Hope in Buddhism is also misunderstood. Many think of hope as clinging to a desired outcome. I hope this will happen. I hope this will not happen. But this kind of hope often becomes another form of attachment. We tie our peace to a specific future, and when the future shifts, we collapse. The Buddha offered a different kind of hope, not the hope of controlling the future, but the hope of trusting the path. The hope that no matter what arises, peace is possible. The hope that compassion and wisdom can always guide us. The hope that awakening is available in every breath. This hope is not fragile. It does not depend on conditions going our way. It is steady, rooted in the truth that even amid suffering, freedom is possible. It is the hope that allowed the Buddha to sit beneath the Bodhi tree, facing his fears, his doubts, his temptations, and still remain. It is the hope that has carried countless beings through hardship, reminding them that suffering is not the end of the story. Together, acceptance and hope create balance. Acceptance grounds us in reality. Hope lifts us toward possibility. Acceptance says, "This is what is." Hope says, "And this is what can be." Acceptance without hope can become resignation. Hope without acceptance can become fantasy. Together, they form a path of wisdom and resilience in daily life. This balance is crucial. When illness arises, acceptance allows us to face it honestly. Hope inspires us to care for ourselves, to seek healing, to trust the strength of the Spirit. When relationships falter, acceptance helps us see clearly what is broken. Hope helps us rebuild or move forward with faith in love's renewal. When global crises overwhelm us, acceptance grounds us in the reality of suffering. Hope inspires us to act, to serve, to keep planting seeds of peace. Acceptance also brings humility. It reminds us that life is not fully in our control. We cannot dictate every outcome. We cannot stop impermanence. We cannot demand certainty. This humility is not weakness. It is wisdom. It frees us from the impossible burden of controlling everything. It allows us to breathe, to rest, to trust God, and in this trust, hope blooms. Not the brittle hope of things must go my way, but the resilient hope of I will meet life with presence, whatever comes. This is the hope that gives strength in hardship, that fuels compassion in dark times, that keeps the heart open when despair tempts us to close. One of the most powerful aspects of acceptance is how it transforms fear. Fear is often a refusal to face reality. We say, I cannot handle loss. I cannot handle change. I cannot handle death. But when we practice acceptance, we discover that we can face these things. They may be painful, but they are not impossible. By opening to them, we uncover strength we did not know we had. The Buddha often reminded his disciples of impermanence, not to frighten them, but to liberate them. He said, all conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive with diligence. Acceptance of impermanence is not grim. It is a reminder to live fully, to love deeply, to use our time wisely. Instead of clinging to what must pass, we embrace it while it is here. Each moment becomes precious because we do not demand that it last forever. Hope flows from this same recognition. When we see that all things change, we also see that suffering is not eternal. Fear softens. Wounds heal. Despair lifts. Nothing is fixed, not even pain. This truth plants hope in the heart. Hope that even in darkness, light can return. Hope that no matter how heavy today feels, tomorrow may bring a shift. Hope that our small acts of love ripple outward in ways we cannot see. Acceptance also helps us release guilt. So many carry regret for past mistakes, replaying them endlessly. But the past cannot be changed. To resist it is to chain ourselves to shadows. Acceptance says, yes, this happened. Yes, I made mistakes. And yes, I can learn, grow, begin again. This is not denial. It is responsibility. It is the courage to face the past without being trapped by it. And from this ground of acceptance, hope rises. The hope of renewal, of new choices, of freedom in the present. Together, acceptance and hope reshape how we face death itself. Death is the great unknown, the final change that all must meet. Resistance to death fuels much of human fear. We cling to youth, to health, to identity, desperate to escape what cannot be escaped. Acceptance says, death is part of life. It is not separate. It is not the enemy. This acceptance does not erase grief, but it softens panic. It allows us to meet death with dignity, with presence, with peace. And hope arises here too, not the hope of immortality, but the hope that love and kindness continue beyond us, carried in the lives we touched, in the web of conditions that never ends. In daily life, we can practice acceptance and hope in small ways. When plans change unexpectedly, instead of collapsing in frustration, we breathe, we adjust, we trust. When conflict arises, we accept the difficulty, and we hold hope for resolution. When life feels overwhelming, we accept our limits, and we hope in the possibility of rest, renewal, and support. Each small practice strengthens the heart for greater challenges. It is important to remember that acceptance is not cold detachment. It does not mean withdrawing from life or numbing ourselves to pain. True acceptance is warm, tender, compassionate. It is saying yes to life in all its forms, joy and sorrow, beauty and loss. It is embracing the whole without picking and choosing. This tenderness gives birth to real hope, not as escape, but as trust in the unfolding of life. The union of acceptance and hope also gives us resilience. Resilience is not about never breaking. It is about bending, adapting, and rising again. Acceptance helps us bend without shattering. Hope helps us rise after we fall. Together, they make the heart unbreakable, not because it never feels pain, but because it can always hold pain and still remain open. And so, as this journey through suffering and liberation reaches its close, we can see the thread that ties it all together. Stress, money, relationships, anxiety, karma, emptiness, compassion, attachment, mindfulness. All these teachings point toward the same truth. Freedom is possible. Not freedom from life, but freedom in life. Not escape from the world, but awakening within it. Acceptance is the final key. It is the quiet strength to rest in what is. Hope is the light that shines within that rest, reminding us that peace is always possible, that love is always possible, that awakening is always possible. Together, they lead us home. As we close, imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean at sunset. The waves roll in unceasing. Some are gentle, some are fierce. You cannot stop them. You cannot control them. But you can stand with steady feet, breathing, watching, accepting. And in that acceptance, you notice the beauty, the golden light on the water, the endless horizon, the rhythm of life itself. In this moment, hope rises not as a demand for what tomorrow must bring, but as trust in the ocean, trust in life, trust in the path that carries us all. This is the heart of Buddhism and the gift of this journey: to accept fully, to hope deeply, to live freely.